Straight from the man cave, Kinnick Under the Kitchen. Authentic, original player artwork available for Hawkeye fans across the country. Now, in addition to the classic sign prints of Hawkeye greats like Chuck Long, Torrey Taylor, and Cooper DeJean, more authentic prints are coming, including current Iowa football stars Kade McNamara, Luke Lachey, and Xavier Wampa. There are so many options available, they make great gifts. Plus, your purchase benefits the athletes themselves and your favorite Hawkeye program from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Visit Under the Kitchen on Facebook, visit the stand each year at Fry Fest, or check out their website, underthekitchen.square.site. Again, that's underthekitchen.square.site. Check out Under the Kitchen today and get your authentic, original Hawkeye print. Introduce you to one of the proud supporters of From the Hawkeye of the Storm, Iowa floor covering down in Bondurant. Now, for the last year and a half, you've heard me talk about this great company in the heart of central Iowa. They've got their tough core, click together, 4.5 millimeter waterproof vinyl flooring, great for you DIYers out there. But even if you're just a contractor or you need a different type of flooring, they've got you covered, whether it be tile showers, carpet. Give Iowa Floor Covering a chance to serve you better and serve your flooring needs. Visit them online at iowafloorcovering.com. That's iowafloorcovering.com, or you can give them a call at 515-379-7000. That's 515-379-7000. Thank you to Iowa Floor Covering in Bondurant. Iowa Floor Covering, proud sponsor and supporter of this show for long time. We appreciate their support. And I'm joined this evening by Mr. Kyle Spence, who is going to be helping out this evening. Kyle, how are you?
Good to be with you. Always a treat to participate in the aforementioned State Hate Week.
A couple of people who are from the state of Iowa, we kind of understand the significance of this, but all Hawkeye fans do. And I kind of just going to get the tenor from people. You had the opportunity to host a show on Saturday when I was out, and then I hosted a show with Coach Patterson Sunday. And so, had a few days to kind of digest what we saw over the weekend. And of course, the 40-point effort, 34 of which was scored in the second half, drawing attention across the country. I saw a piece recorded with Chris Hassel and is it Dar Danielson of CBS Sports that was posted earlier today, and Mr. Danielson, very respected in the media. He'll be on the call with Brad Nessler this Saturday for the Cy-Hawk game. But I'm kind of just anxious to get people's overall takeaways from Saturday, because when you look at some of the stats that have come out, and I retweeted one of them this afternoon, and see the special second half that created sort of an unorthodox season opening win. Like, we haven't seen that type of a second half performance. Even if you go back to that game against Western Michigan, it looked different. He scored over 40 last year against Western Michigan, third game of the season, but it just looked different. So I'm anxious to kind of see how people are digesting things. I've had a chance to go back and watch the Iowa State game, so I've watched that in full. We'll be anxious to kind of share my thoughts on that. But Kyle, a couple days removed from, you've never done the post game thing, so now you know what it feels like to be on the air right after a game, kind of giving your reactions, but now it's been a few days. What are your thoughts heading into Cy-Hawk week?
Well, I think the media coverage was very interesting afterwards, because you could tell a lot of the outlets didn't watch the game. I would say there was a lot of kind of over the top, optimism about the offense. Not to say that it wasn't great to see. It was great to see, but there was a lot of the outlets that kind of acted like it was domination from start to finish and all that stuff. I think, to be perfectly honest with you, I think there was, and you expressed this in your show after the day after the game, but there was almost this kind of stunned silence at the end of the first half, this kind of fear that what was last year and the year before was coming back again. We were going to have a whole other year of this. And then the script just flipped, and the second half was nothing but Iowa euphoria, and Kinnick Stadium was rocking and everybody's optimistic. And, the difference between those two emotions that I went through and that all Hawkeye fans went through is remarkable. And I think after kind of sitting on it and thinking on it for a couple of days, I think, as is usually the case, the middle ground between those two feelings is probably the acceptable and appropriate reaction to what happened on Saturday. And, given that, I think this will be a game similar to a lot of Cyhawk games that we've seen where Iowa State's had weapons, and they clearly do. Jalen Knoll is a guy. He is a very, very good football player. And Iowa has a stingy defense and kind of a who's who on offense. I think the only things that will maybe differentiate that from the last couple of years are I do think the quarterback play is going to be slightly better from Iowa. I was somewhat impressed by Kade McNamara, not the touchdown throw to Reese Vanderzee where he was launching it off his back foot, but the touchdown to Jacob Gill and then the throw to Zach Ortworth where he kind of made something out of nothing. Those were two plays that kind of gave me a little bit of hope. And then also the wide receiver room, I think that was my, after thinking about it, that was my biggest takeaway from the game is, man, we really have had no idea besides the second half of last season who our trustworthy wide receivers were. I think last year at the end of the year, we kind of came to the conclusion that Caleb Brown was somewhat trustworthy and was somebody we could count on to make plays, but we haven't had a guy, let alone multiple guys that we looked at and went, those are playmaking options. And I think
every receiver that's
probably
played
there
in recent time has had problems with drops, including Caleb Brown.
Yes.
We've not, and that's why I keep going back to, what we've been saying throughout the offseason as it relates to wide receiver play, wide receiver involvement, wide receiver reliability, because, we can talk about recruiting, and yes, it's been a problem. Let's remember Iowa doesn't really recruit great at any position. Now, it's been below average at receiver for obvious reasons. But when you have a guy like Tim Lester who has the track record that he has with that position, even with this room that he did not bring in, he did not recruit, he was going to get more production out of these guys. Reese Vanderzee may turn out to be a great receiver at Iowa, but he was not highly touted. No. And, he's a small town, Western Iowa kid. No offense to the small town Western Iowa kids, Cooper DeJean's one, but I just think I saw this coming. I'm not trying to tell people I told you so. I didn't know that I was going to get 492 total yards against Illinois State, but I've been preaching this for months that you were going to get a bump in receiver play. Now, will it translate over? I got to see it still against a Power 4/Big Ten opponent, and we'll see what happens against Iowa State. If they struggle against Iowa State, then I would say the verdict is still out. And I said here the weeks leading up to the first game, I said, hey, it's going to take probably a good month for the pass offense to really get grounded. And, run game was not great even early in the game. And I'm not saying they opened up the passing game with the run game because they didn't. But second half, they were starting to kind of get their flow. And this is a really good coaching staff for Illinois State. I know people don't want to accept that when it's an FCS program, but Brock Speck is a guy who is a defensive coordinator, is a former defensive coordinator at Purdue. So he's a defensive-minded head coach. That's why I was so surprised when I was kind of previewing the game that they were better in total offense a year ago than they were in total defense. But that's a sound program that plays good defense. You knew first game of the season that Brock Speck was going to have those guys ready and was going to have a plan in place, even though it was a totally new offense. So I'm not even looking back. I'm not surprised that Iowa struggled mightily in the first half. And I'm just pleasantly surprised that they turned it on as well as they did in the second, because there was no guarantee that would happen. But I think it was to be expected that they would struggle. New OC, Cade's still kind of beating off the rust. Plus, you're going up against a coach who understands how to play defense. And he knew that Iowa had to establish the run game. He knows that Iowa's receiver play has been horrid, that the passing game has left much to be desired. So, of course, he was going to bring as much pressure as he could. And I give kudos to Brock Speck for doing that and for Tim Lester for adjusting at halftime. I know everybody wanted to ask Seth Wallace after the game, what'd you do at halftime? What'd you change? And Seth, of course, talked about, hey, we just told the guys, let's settle down a little bit, keep on keeping on. We'll we've had too many penalties, etc. And I have no doubt that was part of the language at halftime. But, not being a football mind, I wouldn't be able to break down the tape and tell you exactly what was different. But I think it's clear Tim Lester made some changes at halftime, made some adjustments, and those little adjustments are the power of having an OC who understands the passing game and who understands play calling. And there's more guys open. There were just more guys open.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Than we've seen in other games versus G5 or FCS programs in years past. And Cade missed some. I mean, he missed Luke Lachey over the top of a would-be touchdown in that first half. Again, where he's thrown off his back foot. So that will be interesting to see. Can Cade get off to a quicker start in week 2? And, I do think with Iowa State's situation at linebacker, and we can talk about the injury to Caleb Bacon. I had a good chat with Mark Rogers, the voice of college football, and we had our much beloved Cyclone guest, Levi Stevenson of SB Nation on the show on Tuesday.
Levi 4-8 Stevens.
Stevenson. Anyways, we had him on the show, and we talked a little bit about the linebacker situation, but I do think that's going to affect how Iowa State approaches this game. I think it has to. Offensively, I think, it's been widely publicized this week and talked about. I think most people agree they're going to have to try to spread Iowa out. They're not going to be able to. They proved against North Dakota. They're not about to dominate anybody up front right now. Like, even the Iowa State's defensive line, they struggled to get off the field. And North Dakota more than doubled up Iowa State on the ground. Now, again, context is important. North Dakota had like a 13-minute drive in that second quarter. I think they later had a 13-play drive, which lasted probably 6-7 minutes. So they were able to move the chains. And so there may be something there that that Tim Lester looks at and says, hey, we can take advantage of this. But I think the big thing is they're not going to be able to play in a phone booth and beat Iowa. I just don't think they have the horses up front. I don't think they're good enough up front on either side of the football, but they do have the wideouts. And I think that's the key. That if we're talking about one position to jump the gun here, the key matchup to watch this Saturday is Iowa's DBs against Iowa State's receivers. And if Aaron Graves can wreak havoc up the middle, hey, there's nothing better than having a defensive tackle consistently putting pressure on the quarterback. It's much more effective than having an edge rusher, because it's right there. And we talk about angles as it relates to pass rushing. A guy comes at you from it's your blind side or opposite side. Hey, you can go 12 o'clock. You can potentially go, what would that be? 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock and evade. But when a guy's coming straight at you from up the middle, it's the worst kind of pressure. Just ask Nate Stanley from the 2019 season. Ironically enough, speaking of 2019, for people that did not see this from Iowa athletics, Hawkeye Athletics tweeted this out today. Iowa's 492 total yards accumulated on Saturday under first-year offensive coordinator Tim Lester is the most by a Hawkeye OC in his debut since 79. If you want to do the math on that, that was Hayden Fry, Don Patterson, Bill Snyder, those guys coming in 79. It was the program's highest offensive production since 19. So they haven't had this type of a yardage performance in any game since before COVID. And that was a pretty offensively talented team with Amir Smith-Marset and 2019. I want to make sure.
Tyler Goodson, Nate Stanley.
Yes, I mean Smith-Marset. I'm just trying to think of who was
Brandon Smith. Would he have been on the outside?
Yeah, Brandon Smith, Amir Smith-Marset, but who played tight end? Because Hawkinson and Fant left. Anyways, they were good, right?
Yeah. Sam Laporta was a freshman. I don't know about the rest. I know Sam Laporta played a little bit as a freshman that year, but I don't know.
I'm sure somebody will be able to tell us. And the point is, I don't think that what we saw on Saturday is just an aberration. I think it is something I think there's a lot to take from it. And contrary to what some people would have you believe, total offense does mean something, and it is a large indicator as it relates to offense production, etc. So
I have a 72-year-old man that wants to argue with you.
72-year-old man,
Kirk
Don.
Ferentz.
Oh, Kirk.
He's not quite 72.
And Levi Stevenson got on his soapbox Tuesday about rate stats and yards per play, and I have no problem with yards per play, but if you look at total offense and yards per play together, those two stats go hand in hand usually.
Absolutely, and I love this.
They're familiar.
I love this back and forth, Levi. I was trying to get into you about. And he did it last year too. He did the whole Iowa State didn't run enough plays to qualify for NCAA statistics, and it's like, okay. I mean, Iowa State on Saturday, I've got the numbers in front of me. Yes, they let up a 13-minute drive. They also let up a 3-minute drive, a 6-minute drive, a 4-minute drive, a 4.5-minute drive, and a 5.5-minute drive, all in the same game. Like, the 13-minute drive is an aberration, but they gave up multiple long extended drives, and whether or not they ended in points, like the fact that cut down on the number of plays you got to run, like we can't, like same thing with like when you talked about, rushing averages on the second post-game show, and you're talking about this ridiculous notion that like, oh, there was a 65-yard rush in there, so if we throw that out, they average 2 yards per play, and it's like, no, that's a part of the game. Like, oh, if we throw out the 13-minute drive, like we would have ran so many more plays and we would have had so much more offense. Like, no, that's what your team produced. Like, that's a part of the game. Like, if that 13-minute drive was the only drive that they gave up, that's fine. But North Dakota played keep away successfully from Iowa State in the first half. Like, Iowa State's drives in the first half, if I add them all up, time of possession, they had like 7 or 8 minutes of possession in the entire first half. Like, that's not a valid excuse. I don't know.
But we'll say this.
I thought that was a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah, I will say this as it relates to Iowa State's offense. I don't want to downplay what they have because, like you said at the outset, they do have guys. And they scored a touchdown, 2 plays, like 80 yards in like 36 seconds. And approached it very differently than they typically would. And Levi brought that up on Tuesday. They typically have their run play that they come out, start the season with, and they came out, shooting for the fences, and kudos to them. They went out and scored a touchdown. I really do buy into that. I've been thinking about this throughout the afternoon because I listened to Dar Danielson and Chris Hassel talking about this on CBS Sports Network. And again, Danielson believes that they're going to have to spread Iowa out. And some people are saying, hey, Rocco Beck needs to throw the ball 40 to 45 times for Iowa State to win. And Dar's like, nah, I don't think that's the case. But I might approach this and say, hey, can we throw the ball 20 to 25 times in the first half and then create a lead to where we can, rest the guy's arm and hand it off to Abu Sama the rest of the game. I mean, that's a pretty scripted plan that, could blow up in your face, I suppose. But I would just have to think that Phil Parker is going to be ready for whatever they bring. And he's the best DB coach in the country. But if there's any susceptibility with this Iowa defense, I don't think it's the defensive line right now. I think it probably is that spot opposite of Jamari. Now, I was really impressed with TJ Hall. But if you're an offensive coordinator, Kyle, you're not looking at the middle of the field and saying, oh, I got to go off the linebackers or safeties. You're not really looking at the defensive line because what Aaron Graves leads the country right now in sacks with 3 sacks on Saturday. Maybe edge rushers weren't, we didn't see anything enormous from Ethan Hurkett and, Deontay Craig and Max Llewellyn. But I would just have to think, especially with the weapons that Iowa State Saturday.
With
the weapons Iowa State has.
Oh, go for it.
No, I was just saying, with the weapons Iowa State has, they're going to attack that side of the field, and I'm sure they'll test Jamari Harris because they've got 3 receivers they really like. The kid Green from North Dakota State, who Iowa was interested during the offseason. We mentioned Jaden Higgins, and then Jalen Knoll. You're going to see a lot of passing, and if they don't try to stretch the field vertically, fire Matt Campbell right now, because I don't know any other way that they can score points, effectively and consecutively, other than trying to hit on some deep throws.
Yeah, absolutely. Like and I was going to say there too, like whether or not the edge rushers are, big names or made big plays on Saturday, like Ethan Hurkett, Deontay Craig, those are not Max Llewellyn. Those are not bad football players. Like it's not, we say, oh, it might not be the strongest, point of the defense, that just means that maybe that particular position isn't top 5 in the country. That's all that means. I mean, they might still be top 25 or top 30 in the country. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, they're going to have to throw the ball down the field. And I'm not saying they can't do that. I actually think that they have a chance to hit on 1 or 2 big plays. I think that's that's a possibility. And they're
big plays against Iowa before. We've seen
100%.
Not as much under Matt Campbell, actually more under Paul Rhodes if you go back. But even 2019 got brought up during the show with Levi. 2019 was the double pass. And remember, he had 2 rain delays. And if it wasn't for those rain delays, Iowa State may have won that game in Ames because they had the momentum and had hit on a couple of deep shots. So Matt Campbell, to me, you got to look back at 2019 and figure out, okay, what were we doing in that game to be effective? Before we get to our callers, we got a bunch of people who want to chat, which is great. Erica, thank you for the super chat. Nerves were an issue, she says, in the first half. We must play up tempo. There was a big difference between the 2 halves. Players have too much time to think if play is too slow. And I have no doubt first half jitters are going to happen. We don't really know what to compare it to because what we saw in the first half against Illinois State is very typical, right? So of past Iowa offenses. So hopefully that's the case, and we'll see a difference in the first half on Saturday. And she adds another super chat. Thank you, Erica. My take, Lester was trying to not open up the playbook in first half. He didn't want to open it hardly at all, feeling cautiously optimistic for Saturday. Wouldn't that be nice if he's got all these things in his back pocket for this Iowa State defense? That's a really good defensive staff. I got a lot of respect for John Haycock. Oh, and by the way, Phil Parker has a lot of respect for John Haycock. Let's go to our first caller. Thank you for calling Hawkeye. Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hi, this is Kyle Thompson.
Hey, Kyle. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing good. Good to hear from you, sir.
Man, it's been a long time.
It has been a while. What you been up to?
Work, pretty much. And
okay. Sounds fun. I've been working too.
Fun.
I've been working too. I have. That's the truth.
Well, I kind of like have a prediction for the game on Saturday. I think basically how the game's been going for the past few years, it might be another close one.
Fair possibility it's close, 100%, yeah.
Like, I want to see, like, a good win, not like a close one, but maybe, like, a 14-point win. Like, the only way we could do this, like, just try to score in both halves. Like, can't wait to the second half to score touchdowns like we did last week. I know it was the first game of the season, possibly some first half jitters, but you can't have that against your rival.
So how many points does Iowa need to score, Kyle, this weekend for you to be happy? I mean, obviously you could say more than the other team, but I mean, like, assuming they win with whatever number, let's say they shut out Iowa State, how many points do you need to see to feel pretty good about the offense still?
Possibly between 30 and 40. That'll be a pretty good.
That's a lot of points. That's a lot of points against that Iowa State defense.
I tell you what, if they do that, they're automatically legit. If they do that against Iowa State's defense,
assuming that they're offensive points and it's not like 3 pick sixes. Like if Rocco Beck goes down and then the backup comes in and throws a couple of pick sixes, a different story. But that's a lot of points. They scored 20 last year, and I feel like how did they do that with that offense? I mean, seriously, Jazz had the big counter run, but I don't really remember how to 20. Other than that, I know it was 14, and then 2 field goals. So,
yeah, I mean, the last time they scored 40 against the Cyclones was 2017 when that overtime went, and you all know, and everyone know Brian was calling that game.
He was. That was a pretty good Iowa offense, and not to take anything away from Brian, but he was inheriting. That was his first year as a coordinator. And, had some pretty good skill players on that team. Young, they were green, like Brandon Smith, like Smith Marset, but TJ Hawkinson had a coming out party that day. They had Noah Fant in 2017. They had Akram Wadley in 2017. I believe that was also James Butler, the transfer from Nevada. And they were pretty good up front. James Daniels was on that team. He's carved himself out a nice NFL career. So that was definitely an outlier. The 44-41, it reminds me of the game with Steele Jantz years ago, which Iowa State won in overtime. But I think that was also 44-41 in Ames. There have been much more of the 9-6 variety. You had let's see how many. Let's play a game, Kyle, and I'm talking to both of you, so I'll just refer to you as one joint Kyle. Let's see how many Cy-Hawk games you can remember. How far back can you go, Kyle, on the screen, not Kyle on the phone?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, definitely no further than about 2010. I'm not going.
You can remember all the way back to 2010 and tell me what happened in every game?
12. Oh, no, not every game. I mean, I would say there's a couple here and there, but I mean, the last like 6 or 7 years isolated. Yes.
So, but you can just remember them without looking it up. You can just tell me right off the bat.
I mean, I remember 17. I don't remember a lot about 18. I remember 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. And then 15 was obviously the 42-3 blowout.
They didn't play in 20.
They didn't. Okay. They didn't play in 20. So 2015 was the 42-3 blowout. 17 was the game that you guys are talking about. 2009 was a close game in.
Wait a minute. I'm going to correct you. 2015 was not a blowout. You're thinking of 2016. 2015 was the Bethard runs. Remember, that was his first road start. Had a throw, had a pass to Riley McCarron, had a nice touchdown to Tavon Smith, and he ran for a bunch of yards in that game.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
There's definitely 4 or 5 of the games that were very unmemorable.
2018 was the Brandon Smith catch. He had a catch. He came up gingerly with his shoulder. That was a low-scoring game. 2019 was a fun game. That was the two weather delay thing. And then 2021, of course, was the game Petrus to Charlie Jones and all the interceptions thrown by Brock Purdy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 2019 was definitely the most satisfying of the bunch for me personally.
You still with us, Kyle?
Yeah, I'm still with you. Yeah, I remember 2019 game. I mean, I didn't watch because at that time I was working at Hy-Vee and I was working on that day. I was pretty upset I didn't get to watch the game, but I did catch the ending of it.
I don't think I've ever missed a Cy-Hawk game. I'm trying to think of the last time I missed a Cy-Hawk game. How old would I have been? How old would I have been when I missed a Cy-Hawk game?
The only Cy-Hawk game I missed was 2020 when COVID hit.
I think 2007. 2007, I would have been 11 years old. I don't know that I watched that game in 2007. Maybe
we lost that day.
Huh?
We lost that day.
Did they? Okay.
I remember that they lost. I don't remember anything about the game.
Well, Kyle, we appreciate you calling in, sir. Anything else before I let you slide?
One more thing. On your take, like I was today at work, got a buddy of mine who's a Cyclone fan told me that they have the most talented team. Do you guys really believe that, or it's just more both the Cyclones and the Hawkeyes are featuring just same or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, more talent. I think that'd be hard to say. They have more talent, although talent is sort of in the eyes of the beholder. Are we judging? Like a guy like Quinn Schulte is a perfect example. Like Quinn Schulte's probably never going to play in the league, but in his position in Iowa's defense, he is invaluable to what Iowa does. There's certainly more. I would say this, Kyle. Iowa State's got a lot more proven talent at receiver, but honestly, past that, I think Abu Sama is the best back on both teams, but after that, like I wouldn't take anybody else like clearly over their counterpart on Iowa. Like, Rocco Becht is probably a notch above Kade. Kyle, you would disagree on that. You think Iowa's got the advantage with quarterback. I don't know about that. I was impressed with Rocco Becht Saturday, and I got to see more from Kade coming off 2 injuries. But like tight end, Iowa State's good. They got Ben Bramer, he got a couple of targets Saturday, didn't catch a pass, but he is really good. And he was kind of an preseason All-American darling. So, but they're so green at linebacker. And again, they weren't good. They weren't great, I should say. I don't say they weren't good. They were not great up front on either side of the ball. They're really good at safety. I think you could argue they're better at safety than Iowa is. But then you're looking at Iowa safeties, you're like, hey, we bring back a super senior in Quinn Schulte and a former 5-star in Xavier Wampa, plus Sebastian Castro, who works as a hybrid. I wouldn't. I think an objective person would probably say that it would be hard to claim Iowa State, make them the more talented team. But again, talent is sort of in the eyes of the beholder, I guess.
Well, I can take that one step further too. I don't think talent matters at all in this series. I don't think talent has mattered at all in the last 10 Cy-Hawk games.
Well, it matters to some extent.
Well, okay,
right?
but I mean that we saw in that 19 game, Iowa State was the more talented team, or the 21 game. Iowa State was the more talented team that day, and Iowa State got blown up by mistakes over and over and over and over again. I mean, Iowa has played tons of teams that Iowa has been less talented than, and it just hasn't mattered. Like a lot of the Wisconsin teams over the last several years have been more talented than Iowa. Wisconsin has not won the Big Ten West. It doesn't matter.
Kyle, appreciate you calling in, sir, and we'll hopefully chat with you after the game.
Hopefully I get on and see you. Go Hawks.
Sounds good, sir. Go Hawks. Appreciate Kyle calling in as always. Got a super chat here. Want to acknowledge Midwest. Let's see. Midwest storm chasing. Is the Iowa State quarterback really that much better, or does he just pass 3 times as much? And I'm not sure how you could take Iowa State safeties over Castro and Wampa. Yeah, so that's an interesting conversation. I mean, Castro's not your typical safety, and these are different defenses, right? They're constructed differently.
Yeah.
Iowa State's loaded back there with Jeremiah Cooper, Malik Verdon, Bo Freeler. Those are all really good college football players. They may not have as much next-level potential, although I think Bo Freeler's got a shot at his size. Xavier Wampa, Sebastian Castro have NFL futures, assuming they stay healthy. I'm not saying that. I wouldn't say Iowa State's. I just said that. I don't think Iowa State's quarterback. I wouldn't take Rocco Becht leaps and bounds ahead of Kade in a draft. Like if I had to draft these guys, but they do throw the ball more, and I think from that perspective, you look at Rocco and you're like, okay, he's more of a weapon for that offense than Cade's ever going to be for Iowa. He just is, because they're going to be more dependent. They're going to be more wide receiver centric, if that makes sense. And, again, I have confidence in Quinn Schulte and Xavier Wampa, but if there's any place that Iowa State's strong on defense, it's at safety. Yeah. And they showed some vulnerability at corner. A couple of young guys, well, one specific, I think his last name is Williams, during that game against North Dakota. So, and they, again, green on the defensive line as well. Just a lot of unprovens out there.
Yeah. The one thing I will say from the beginning of that call that I totally agree with is if Iowa comes out, and I don't think they will, but if Iowa comes out in the first half and plays a first half similar to the first half they played against Illinois State, it won't be 6-0. It'll be probably 14-0 Iowa State or 14-3 Iowa State. I don't think you can come out and not move the ball and run offense the way they ran offense and get away with not giving up points. I think the start that they get off to is going to be very, very important. And even if they don't move the ball, like we've seen a lot in these games, like in some of those games, even like go back to 19 and 20 when the offense was a little bit better, or even 21, that Penn State game in 21 was a perfect example. Was they didn't need to score, they didn't need to move the ball 50 yards to score every possession. Like in that Penn State game, once Sean Clifford went down, that game was a game of, okay, Penn State gets the ball 3-and-out, punt. Iowa moves the ball 15 yards, punts. They stop Penn State. They get 15 yards of field position. Penn State punts. Like, even if they can do that, they're going to be okay. But if you're just going to get stopped and go 3 and out consecutively the way that they did, you're going to be in a tough spot. Because I as much as I would like to think the offense is better, I still do not want to see Iowa play from behind, because they have historically not played well from behind.
Yeah, and to play from behind effectively, you have to have provens in the passing game. And other than Luke Lachey and Addison Estringa, they don't really have provens. I know Reese Manders, he looked good. He's a true freshman, and he's done it against
he's still not proven. Yeah,
one day. And credit to him, 2 of those catches were touchdowns. But again, these teams are built differently. But if you compare Iowa State's receiver production Saturday versus Iowa's, Iowa State still blows Iowa out of the water. So they're just built differently. And I think you're right. You can't afford to get behind. And that's the case probably in any game, but especially against an Iowa State team that if they do get ahead, then Iowa's going to have to be forced to throw more. And Iowa State then can start handing the ball to Abu Sama. And, I still think they're going to have problems running the ball against Iowa's front, especially with what we saw to YA and Aaron, along with that linebacker and core, which I thought looked really good, along with Kyler Fisher made a nice play in pass coverage Saturday. But Iowa State is, given one thing, they are really talented at the skill position spot. So Midwest Storm Chasing, thank you for the super chat. Let's go to our next caller. We've got Jack, I believe, who is on hold. Let me see if we've got Jack. Jack is here. Welcome, Jack.
Hello.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. I have one statement to make today.
Okay.
If Iowa wins this game, they're going to beat Nebraska.
Okay. That's an interesting math equation. So why do you believe a win against Iowa State means a win against Nebraska?
Every single time Iowa had Nebraska on their schedule since 1982, if Iowa beat Iowa State, they beat Nebraska. If they lost to Nebraska.
Okay, interesting. I'll have to go back and let me do the math here in my own head here for a second. You can count on one hand how many times Iowa State and Nebraska have beaten Iowa in the last 10 years. So obviously Nebraska won. Wait a minute. Okay, you're right. Yeah, you're right, Jack. Yeah, you're right. 2022 was the loss to Iowa State in Kinnick and the loss to Nebraska. And then
2014 was the previous one, right?
Which one?
2014.
2014. And I don't remember the Nebraska game, but I'm assuming Nebraska won. That was just a couple of years after Nebraska joined the conference, so that wouldn't surprise me. We were pretty good at that point. And then, of course, I can't go back further. Do you know, Jack, before 2012, when was the last time Iowa played Nebraska? Do you know?
2011.
Okay, before 11. I guess I could 11 and 12. So before 11, 2000. Okay. And Iowa would have lost to Iowa State in 2000. And they would have lost to Nebraska. Okay. That's a cool stat. I might have to tweet that out and give you credit this week. That's pretty cool. Let's hope they don't lose to Iowa State for a couple of reasons.
Well, I think it at least brings up an interesting question too, and I don't know if we've touched on this yet or not, Corey. Iowa State and Nebraska could very well be the 2 games in line for second toughest on the schedule besides the trip to Columbus, right?
Kyle didn't watch my preseason show with Coach Patterson. He just gave that away.
I watched some of it. I did not watch all of it.
You liar. So I actually, you want to know who my 2 losses were? 2?
Iowa State,
obviously, and Nebraska.
Yeah. And Coach Patterson had the same thing, didn't he?
He did. We matched up on that. So I hope I'm wrong on that. But if I'm right, then that streak that Jack's bringing up will be broken. So good stuff. Jack, anything else for us?
That's it.
Well, appreciate you calling in, sir, and hope to talk to you after the game.
All right. Thanks, Corey. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks.
Always appreciate hearing from. Jack has called before. I recognized his face, so appreciate that, Jack. And I'm going to make sure I share that stat with Coach Patterson because I don't know how many times they played Nebraska back during the Hayden era. Again, my knowledge, that's why I have Coach Patterson. He's my record book between 79 and 99.
And I'm your Google. They played in 2000, 99, and then they played in 82, 81, 80, 79. And then before 79, they didn't play between 46 and 79. Didn't play for 33 years.
Okay. No, there you go. There's the answer. Okay. It sounds like maybe the Sam Laporta, Sean Byer in 19. And that would have been, if that's correct, and I'm not doubting Kelvin here or anybody else in the chat, that was not a very good comparatively, that was not a great tight end room because Sam Laporta was really young and Sean Byer never really fulfilled expectation. In fact, he struggled in 19 at times. I believe 19 was the Wisconsin game where he got pushed into the punt, or I don't know if you want to say that, or he didn't hear the signal to get out of the way of the punt, and it ended up being a costly turnover in that game. So that might have been kind of a down year for Iowa State, for Iowa at tight end. Now, let's keep in mind they lost 2 first-rounders during 2019 Hawkins. And so I'm not I'll forgive Iowa.
To have a down year.
Yeah, I'll forgive Iowa a little bit on that. Midwest Storm Chasing, another super chat. If Iowa wins 28-14, Iowa has 400 total yards of offense. I think they could give Ohio State trouble. Well, the good news is we won't have to worry about Ohio State for a while because they get Troy, they get Minnesota on the road, and I know Minnesota lost week 1, but any road game in the Big Ten is going to be a challenge. Then you get a bye week. So that's the good news. I would tend to agree with you. If they can somehow get over 400 total yards against Iowa State, this is a good Iowa State. I still believe this is a good Iowa State defense, regardless of their loss of Caleb Bacon at linebacker and some of the inexperience they have at, kind of like Iowa, one of the corner spots. I still don't think this is probably still a top third of the Big 12 conference in total defense. Now, I don't know, what Utah historically is really good defensively under Kyle Whittingham. And I guess I couldn't tell you what Arizona and Arizona State bring to the conference, but Kirk brought it up earlier this week. The Big 12 typically is an offense, or historically the last 10, 15 years has been offense oriented. Iowa State has broken that trend with John Haycock. And hey, look at all the offensive coordinators that have come and gone at Iowa State. Kudos to Matt Campbell, just like Kirk Ferentz has kept Phil Parker, not quite as long for Matt, but he's held on to one of the most coveted names. I'm sure John Haycock's had opportunities to go other places, and he has not. Okay, thank you for the super chat, Midwest Storm Chasing, and Erica with the super chat. Throwing the ball more equals more chances for pick sixes and interceptions. If you go back in the last, again, Matt Campbell era, not just 2021 when they had all those picks on Brock Purdy, but interceptions tend to be a big storyline in this game. Even last year, I believe it was Sebastian Castro that had a big interception that took them down. I think that set up the other touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. You have the Jazz.
He had a pick six at the end of the half, didn't he?
Okay, maybe it was the pick six.
He had.
There you go. So context is so important here because they scored 20 points a year ago. But I'm like, how did they get to 20? Well, they had 2 field goals and 2 touchdowns. One of them was a pick six. Yeah. So I'd have to go back. I'm going to go back and watch that game. Yeah. Maybe I'll do that tonight. When I'm done with this show. Thank you, Erica, for the super chat. Let's go to our phone line here. Thank you for calling Hawkeye Hangout. Who's on the line?
Hello?
Hello, you're on the air.
Hi.
Hey.
How's it going, Corey?
It's going great. You sound like are you okay? Do you need a paramedic?
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. You just sound a little like someone's trying to. You know what you sound
better?
Like? You sound like that time when Jerry tries to suffocate George on his hospital bed in Seinfeld. That's what you sound like. You sound like you have a pillow over your face. That's all right. We can hear you.
That's good. No, I just wanted to ask you. I never got the chance on Saturday or Sunday to ask, but what impressed you the most about their performance on Saturday, and what do they need to do to continue that success on Saturday against Iowa State?
What's your first name, sir?
James.
James, I love you, James. Thank you for asking me a question about how I feel about the. So I love it because this show is all about Coach Patterson, but after the games, like nobody ever asked me what I think. So once in a while, I always share what I think, but nobody usually asks for it. So I'll tell you what impressed me the most. I think what impressed me the most was what I said earlier, that there just seemed to be better wide receiver separation, more guys open, which I think is an indication not only of better route running, but better route trees, better concepts. And I know this is one topic that we can discuss on this show. I've gotten ripped. Like, people have come after me this week. How can you say Kamari Moulton's the best back? It's Caleb Johnson. I was really impressed with Kamari in that first half, not because of the stats. His numbers didn't look great, but the guy was getting hit behind the line of scrimmage, and I don't think he ever took a tackle for a loss. So
exactly,
I'm really impressed with his small guy, but I can see why Liddell likes him so much. So I like the running game right now. It's just a matter of, can you replicate this against better DBs and a better defensive coordinator in John Haycock this Saturday? But I really do. I'm encouraged by the fact that there were more guys open. And even though Kade missed some, especially early, there were still plays they left on the table, and yet they still scored 34 in the second half.
Exactly. Now, I don't know about everybody else, but to me, like, I know some are saying it seemed like Tim opened up the playbook in the second half, but to me, it felt like they were just overall executing better in the second half of last week's game versus the first half. It didn't necessarily seem like they opened up the playbook more. It just seemed like we were executing better overall.
And wasn't the play to Lachey that Kyle wasn't the play to Luke Lachey that Kade McNamara underthrew? Wasn't that a first half play?
Yeah, that's
a first half play. So that play was there. I mean, yeah, I would agree. I think a lot of it's execution, but again, without going back and like breaking down each play by play. Here's one thing that we're going to be able to say, I think, with confidence heading into every week this year, James. And this sounds cliche and simplistic, but if you ask Don Patterson, I think he would agree. The one thing we can count on every week is that this Iowa offense will have more plays at its disposal because of who the offensive coordinator is. And again, I know that sounds simplistic, but Don has made the comment in the past, and I tend to agree with him without being an offensive play caller. Iowa hasn't had enough plays. There's not enough variety and concepts and innovation and ingenuity in this offense under Brian Ferentz. And you know what that was? I'll tell you what that was highlighted by. And you can't see me because you're on the phone line, James, but I'm going to show everybody else. This is what encompasses all of it right here. When you see Brian Ferentz out on the sideline with a call sheet that looks like this index card in my hand, that should be an indication to you that we ain't got enough plays. And,
right.
Seeing Tim Lester up in the press box gives me, as an Iowa fan, it gives me a level of confidence and comfort, I guess, if you will.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. One thing that I think I heard it on Hawk Talk today with Dolph and Kirk. Had it not been for the holding on the punt return, and then if Lachey would have actually been able to hold on to the ball, we would have had a 20-25 point first half, instead of just going into half at 6-0, so had we executed better the first half, we would have been, 20-25 points going into halftime, not just 6.
And I would agree with you. The only thing I would say, and this is true because we all went to kindergarten, but they say in kindergarten, if ands or buts were candies and nuts, blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, you still got to execute. I mean, yeah, you're right. But, hey, 34 in the second half, I think the big thing is they scored 40.
Yeah, that's impressive for you look at how stagnant our offense has been for the last 4 years.
Yeah, I think just be happy with 40 points in the game in spite of a first half where they really didn't do much.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I I just honestly hope that we can continue that second half success on Saturday against Iowa State.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate you calling in, James. And
yep, I'm going to get off here and sit back and enjoy the rest of the show.
Well, we'll have to talk to you Saturday.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Speaking of talent, by the way, I think what you just brought up, Corey, is probably the biggest talent addition that Iowa had this year, looking at that first game. And I think we'll see this throughout the season. But like you're talking about the call sheet and Brian having more of a limited call sheet and Tim being up in the press box with a lot more. I mean, you could see even on the TV, a lot more at his disposal. Like he had a whole, he had a couple of the big laminated sheets at his disposal. And
hold on a second. Let's not paint the picture like because Brian was on the sidelines, he couldn't have a big play sheet. Brian Ferentz chose.
No. I'm saying I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying that compared to what Lester had is emblematic of the difference in the two coordinators. But I mean, let's be honest here. Like, and Don would tell you this too. I think to have all that information in front of you and manage it and call a great football game is a talent. Like that's a talent addition that they made that is not only impacts the way that the players are coached, but it impacts the execution on game day because, even if Brian had that big call sheet at his disposal, I still don't know that he would have called a great game. Does that make sense? Like there's certain people have a knack for using all that information in front of them and calling a great game.
Again, it's like it'd be like having me go into a 5-star seafood restaurant and having me be the main cook. Like,
yeah,
I'm gonna put something on the plate, but it probably ain't gonna taste very good. I mean, you're either qualified or you're not. It doesn't mean anything about Brian personally. I don't know, how many times have we said that on the show? is beyond qualified for the job, as anybody should who's making almost $1 million and is a Power 5 offensive coordinator. So I'm not going to anoint Tim Lester as the next great thing, but he's doing what he should be doing when you're making that much money. Now, I'm going to credit him when he deserves credit. He deserves credit from what he did Saturday, obviously, second half. I don't think those numbers, we brought those numbers to the fore, a couple minutes ago. Those aren't a coincidence. that you're setting these marks in the first game in which Brian Ferentz is no longer the coordinator. Now, here's what you're going to keep hearing, and I love Kirk Ferentz. Let me just say, I love me some Kirk Ferentz, okay? But here's what you're going to keep hearing out of Kirk Ferentz, Kyle. And it's okay. It's okay. Kirk is a dad. I get it. I understand.
I know where this is going.
We're going to keep hearing all year about how the offense, every time he's asked about the offense and improvement, it's going to be, well, we're much more veteran up front. Because
we're healthier.
Yeah,
but healthier.
Right. But up front, it's always about the guys up front and on the offensive line. And he's right to a large extent. Like I say, you got to be able to run the football effectively in this offense. But it does not take away from the fact that how many years has Iowa gone without a good offensive line? It should not have taken this long. And if you're, Kirk's never going to come out and say that, well, we would have had this type of a performance with Brian here with this offensive line. We all know that's not true. Kirk may want to say that as dad, but I think, there's some of that. But again, we've talked about it. The level of responsibility that an OC holds across the board, that encompasses offensive line as well. And yes, line play has been better, but it's one game, and I didn't think it looked great in the first half.
No,
but they do have to be good for this offense to be good. I agree with Kirk.
Well, and also too, like this is the thing that frustrated me the most about Brian's tenure, I think, is we saw the offensive line struggles, and he continued to put personnel out on the field that was made for an Iowa offense with a good offensive line and called a game emblematic of an Iowa team that had a good offensive line. Like if your offensive line is struggling like Iowa's did in 21 and 22, and 23 as well. If you know your offensive line isn't going to just be able to push people around, you don't put immobile quarterbacks and call inside zone runs. You just don't. Like, he still called the same game as if he thought he had a great offensive line. Like, there was no variety, no, quick outs to wide receivers. There was no, let's put a mobile quarterback in. There was no thinking. That's the OC's job as well.
All right. We got a super chat here from Midwest Storm Chasing, bringing it today. Midwest Storm Chasing, appreciate that. Part 2 of the quarterback conversation. Nothing against the Iowa wide receivers, but look what Kade did at Michigan. I don't see Iowa State's quarterback getting them to the Big 12 championship game. Okay, maybe he's talking about Iowa State's receivers. Am I reading this wrong?
He's saying he's comparing Kade to Rocco because Kade got Michigan to the Big 10 championship game. He's saying he doesn't see Rocco getting Iowa State to the Big 12 championship game.
So, yeah, I mean, what's the talent differential between Iowa State at wide receiver and Michigan at wide receiver? I would still think
I would say too.
The
Iowa State doesn't have Michigan's running game either. If Iowa State had Michigan's running game, I think they would have a shot to get to the Big 12.
Well, they should. I think Abu Sama's a beyond talented guy. That's one thing that Levi brought up yesterday was we were talking about this matchup. He brought, and it's kind of like Iowa, right? Everybody always thinks nationally, well, Iowa's going to, run you to death. And yet, even though Iowa tries that, historically, Iowa does not run the ball well under Kirk Ferentz. No. And Iowa State's sort of the same way. I mean, there are flashes, but they are not as consistent on the. You'd think with guys like David Montgomery and Breece Hall, and who am I missing? Even Abu Sama, you would think those guys, you'd be able to just torch people on the ground. But I don't think Iowa State's been good enough up front. And that's what it comes down to a lot with these teams. You look at Wisconsin, what's been their bread and butter? They've had great running backs and great line play.
Yeah.
Again, we sound like we're simplifying it, but that's just, the reality of it. That's why they've had a ton of offensive linemen drafted. They had a ton of running backs in the league. Iowa is a perfect example of a program that's had flashes and they've had individuals. They've not had NFL backs and they've not had collective strength up front in a long time. So hopefully that's the case this year. And hopefully Iowa State doesn't have the collective talent up front. Because here's the deal. As good as Abu Sama is, unless that line blocks well, it's not going to matter. Because Iowa's loaded in the front seven. When you talk about those two guys in the interior and then all those linebackers plus Castro coming down with the heat, they are loaded. So that Iowa State offensive line has to block well. Appreciate the super chat, Midwest Storm Chasing. Let's go to our next caller. We've got Alex here. Alex, bringing out the retro Hawkeye on the hat tonight. Good to see you. Oh, you're muted. Nope. You're there you go. Nope. Still can't hear you. Hasn't this happened before? I feel like this has happened before. You try to figure that out. As you're trying to figure that out, we've got another super chat. This one from James. This is the same James that called in a minute ago. Forgot to mention on the phone, I know this is about football, but Caitlin Clark had a triple-double tonight. I've seen that. I actually looked up the stat line. People were commenting on it. Not watched the game, but I did see that she scored. How many she have? She was in the 20s somewhere, and then she had 10 and 10. So hopefully we get Alex back here in a second. But thank you for the super chat, James. And boy, she's certainly carving out a nice start. 28, according to our other James in the private chat. So thank you, James, for that. And again, James H., thank you for the super chat. Robert wants to know if I'm hiding at Kids Day. What does that mean?
Do you hide at Kids Day? He was probably at Kids Day, and he went because he was hoping to see Corey Bratta, and he didn't see Corey Bratta.
How many people are at Kids Day?
Well,
at least probably 5,000. It's probably more than that, probably 10,000.
Yeah, somewhere.
Anyway, I was there. I was not hiding. They let us sit on the media side, so we're on the opposite side. We were on the sidelines right before they let us basically be on the field up until the start of the practice, and then they usher us off into the east stands. So ran into a couple people that flagged me down. I always appreciate hearing from people that watch the show. But Robert, if you run into me somewhere, be sure to say hi. Not meaning to hide. James is correcting, says she had 22. He clicked the wrong button. Okay. He had 22. Okay. 22 for Caitlin Clark. I got 24 on ESPN, 24, 10, and 10. Okay. All right, folks, here's the deal. As we wait our next caller, we've got 166 people here. How many have liked the video? This is a very simple thing that I am pleading with people to do each and every night. Kyle, you're going to be able to tell me in a couple seconds. How many people have liked our live stream right now here on YouTube? We are sitting at, I am seeing 43. 43. That means, I'll do the math on that. That's like a quarter of what we have for viewership. So please, folks, slide down real quick. Hit that little thumbs up button. Very simple. Do that if you haven't already done it. Thank you, Amanda, in the chat for reminding everybody to do that. And if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. It does help. But thank you for reminding everybody to hit that like button. Stipulate. Corey, too cool for fan section. Brada. Yeah. That's, I don't even know how to respond to that one. Let's go back to Alex. Alex, we got you this time.
Can you hear me now?
We got you loud and clear, sir.
Perfect.
All right, my first question. I got a question to you before we get anywhere. Go anywhere.
Okay.
And I sure hope that this doesn't fall flat on its face. How is married life treating you?
Oh well, we're still married, so I guess it's going
Thank
good.
goodness.
Almost,
That could have been
almost a
really
year,
bad. That could have been really bad.
Be almost a year. This Friday will be 11 months, so still going good.
Okay.
She lets me go crazy for Iowa football games. So
Are you still in the? I'm not going to ask any more personal questions after this one. Are you still in the honeymoon phase?
Never left it.
All right,
After almost 8 years been together. Yeah, never left it. That's kind of the trick.
You were together a long time before you were married. Okay.
Yeah. So, so I rewatched the game on Sunday, and there's a couple things I wanted to mention that I jumped on when Kyle and Don Patterson were on Saturday after the game. So Jacob Gill caught one of the touchdown passes.
Mm-hmm.
I have to applaud his toughness. If you watch the two catches he got caught before that, he got absolutely laid out, and he bounced right back up and went right back to the huddle. It was just amazing to see him get just laid out.
Held on to the ball times.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Held on to the ball too. Yeah.
Blanking on his name, Brian Allen Jr., the defensive end that. So the reason why I bring up his name now, we kind of transition into the Saturday game where Iowa State's got a lot of injuries. Obviously, Caleb Bacon, one of their best linebackers, is out, along with a bunch of other linebackers out. They're playing like third, fourth string linebackers. They said they might get a freshman, Caleb Brenzen. He enrolled pretty early. They said he might get a chance, but he's a freshman. So really thin at that linebacking core. Defensive tackle, I think they said Jalen Travis might be out. Oh no, excuse me, Trent Jones. But you mentioned Abu Sama. He was actually dinged up in that North Dakota game as well. But they said he's probably good to play as well. But I kind of bounced all over the place just thinking about that. But getting back to Brian Allen, they have two guys on the offensive line, the left tackle, Jalen Travis, and then one of their guards, Dylan Hassert. He's questionable for that game. One's the left tackle, the other one's he can play interior or tackle as well, and he's questionable too. So I think Iowa's defensive line will make Rocco feel very uncomfortable come Saturday. And I think Brian Allen White might kind of have a coming out party, so to speak. And I know he doesn't see the field quite a bit because he's behind Deontay Craig. And I can't think of the other defensive end that Iowa has.
Well, no,
Yeah.
Herkett. You're thinking of Herkett, yeah.
So, but I think Iowa's defense is going to really feast, and you're going to spread Iowa out. I think that's honestly the way to attack them. But I think
is there any way we're wrong on that, by the way? Because everybody's saying that this week. Is there any way we're wrong and they don't come out and try to spread Iowa out? Because Phil Parker's no dummy. He knows they're going to try to do that. And if that's actually what Iowa State does, then it's just going to, hey, who's prepared better and has better horses, I guess. I don't know
Is
how
it me? Is it me? It seems like Matt Campbell tries to play Kirk Ferentz ball playing Kurt Ferentz. He tries to play like, oh, we're better at Iowa football. We're going to run it down your throat. We have the bigger bodies, and yet it never seems to work for him. But I don't know. Maybe
is Jack, because here's the deal. I almost said Jack Campbell. Matt Campbell. Is Matt Campbell, I don't want to use the term humble because that's maybe not always what it is, but Alex, for a number of years, even the best of the best for Iowa, Phil Parker was stubborn and refused to make some adjustments against Purdue, and it bit them several times. And eventually Phil started making some minor adjustments with how he approached that game, I think, and Don has attested to this as well. So you wonder, will Matt actually make those changes? Like, we all see it on the outside, like, oh, that's obvious they should do that. But sometimes coaches believe what they believe, and he is the head coach. Obviously, he believes or has believed that they should go up strength against strength. But see, that's the thing. Their strength is not up front. And their strength, Osama's really good. Iowa's a perfect example. You've got to have guys who can block for you. And against that front, that's why I think the key matchup number one, I'm going to come out with a preview video tomorrow morning, but key matchup number one is certainly Rocco Becht and the receivers against Iowa's DBs. But then key matchup number two is Iowa State's the interior of that offensive line versus Y.A. Black and Aaron Graves. Because if those guys are getting home and making life difficult for Rocco Becht, they don't win. Like, I don't see any route to victory if that happens, because I can't imagine that they're going to have time to burn Iowa over the top in that scenario.
I think they'll get one play. I think they'll like, there's a busted coverage or something weird happens where Iowa State will get a big chunk play, but that's the only one they'll get. That's what I foresee in the game. And then kind of switching for Iowa offense, we talked always about that first half about like how bad they looked. And I think it was just more of a feeling out. It's a brand new offense. We saw a lot more motion, and it actually got them in trouble a couple times where I believe it was, I was going to say Laporta, Lachey. He was in motion, but he turned towards the line on an arc, which you apparently can't do because that's an illegal motion. So I think it was a lot of a feeling out. But to me, it looked like Kade, obviously in the second half, he got a lot more comfortable. I think he was able to read the defense a lot better, knowing where they were at. And that's why he was so successful in that second half, because you could see like, okay, they're in zone or they're in man coverage. I know I have a good matchup over here. The other thing too, this is the healthiest we've ever seen Kade. We saw him in that Western Michigan game when he ran for that first down. And man, I mean, my grandpa can run faster than him. He looked, the one play he got that got called back, which, okay, fine, whatever. But he looked good. And I guarantee everyone in that crowd outside of Illinois State fans kind of went, kind of like, oh God, oh God, oh God. But then he got up, adjusted his knee brace and ran back. And then he had another one where he weirdly dove forward instead of sliding, but he looked good. And I think this is where Iowa, you talk about the matchup between Rocco Becht and Kade McNamara, where a healthy Kade is a dangerous Kade. If he has that ability, now I'm not asking for specific QB draws where QB run plays that Tim Lester draws up, but it's like, hey, if it's a 3rd and 5 and there's no one in that middle of the field, if they don't have a spy on you, go get 6 yards, get us the first down, keep the drive alive. Make them think about having him run the ball. It just makes Iowa that more dynamic, which we haven't seen since CJ Beathard. So maybe in a pure passing like capacity, I think Rocco's a little better. But in terms of maybe overall athleticism, if Kade's healthy, I think he's better. And Iowa State's wide receivers, I think, are a little better or better than Iowa's wide receivers. Not, that's a pretty low bar to hit. But I actually feel pretty good about going in this game. Obviously, there's always a little bit of nervousness because it's an in-state rival. Iowa State could be an absolutely terrible team. They could win one game, and the one game they do win is against Iowa. And Iowa could win every game.
Alex, don't you kind of feel a little nervous because you feel good? Like, that's kind of where I'm at right now. Going out of Saturday, I was like, man, I feel pretty good about where, like, I watched the Iowa State game back, and I'm like, okay, they do have receivers, and I think they do have the ability to burn Iowa over the top. But that's pretty one-dimensional. I don't know, like, I almost feel nervous that I'm not that nervous. You know what I'm saying?
It's it's one of those things where it's like, man, why am I? It's one of those things where you're not. I get it. I don't know how to explain it, but
it's the thing that catches my attention too, Corey. I don't know if you've seen this. I know you're not a betting man. Over under set at 35.5, not surprising. But as confident as we probably feel, the line is Iowa minus 2.5. Like this is they're saying this is a pick'em game if it was on a neutral site.
Well, you could almost if the home field is 3, then that means they like Iowa State a little better.
Yeah, That's that.
You know,
I don't know. I mean,
I don't know how all that works because, like you said, I'm not a betting guy. But let me just say this: this is the same Vegas that had Iowa at 7.5 total for wins last year, and they have Iowa at 7.5 this year. Now they were way off last year. We all knew they were going to be way off, and they're going to be way off this year again. So I don't know. Maybe those guys in Vegas just don't know Iowa very well. Besides, they don't score a lot of points.
I think it started when it opened up at like 6.5, and I think it got bet all the way up to. I think it's like right before the season started, it was at 8.5. So it was opened up pretty low for Iowa, but I mean that's really all I wanted to come on and say. Unfortunately, well maybe not. I shouldn't say unfortunately. Saturday I will be near Des Moines in a park. Well, not in Des Moines, but outside of Des Moines for my son's birthday. So I'm trying to like shut off social media so I don't see the game so I can watch it in full, but I don't know if I'll be able to contain myself. So I won't be on Saturday probably, but I appreciate everything. You know, Corey does, Kyle, it's, you know, you're kind of a new face. I haven't seen you around too much, but it's, you know, you're a great addition. It was fun to talk to you and Don on Saturday after a Hawkeye win. So, you know, hopefully we'll see you next Saturday after Troy, and hopefully I will be sitting 3-0.
Sounds good, Alex. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And by the way, can I just address something here in the chat? So Midwest Storm Chasing, thank you for the super chat, but he says, how much do I need to donate to be able to call in? You can call in whenever. The phone line. So the phone line was full here a few minutes ago. Both of our people that were on the phone line are off. So the line is open now. We also have StreamYard. You can call in via StreamYard. Thank you for the super chat. But it's 515-635-1601. 515-635-1601. All right. And we're going to get to, he's thrown another super chat in here that we will get to here in just a minute. So again, thank you for that, Midwest Storm Chasing. Let's go to our next caller. We've got Gabriel here.
Hey, how's it going? You guys hear me?
We got you loud and clear. How are you?
Pretty good. How are you guys?
We're hanging in there. We're doing okay. I'm looking forward to the game Saturday. I'm sure you are as well.
Yeah, me as well. I just wanted to share a little bit. I've been a big Kade fan ever since before he transferred here. I was a big Michigan fan. It's actually where I wanted to go originally. They didn't want me, but I wanted them. Chose Iowa instead. It's my second option. And I tore a ligament in my knee about a year ago now. And I go to the rehab facility here, wonderful rehab facility here, sports medicine at Iowa. And I show up and I'm ecstatic because Kade McNamara is there. I get to rehab with him for about 3 months. We have the same time.
Okay.
This guy is incredible. He is such a nice guy. He's a great team leader. I remember at Michigan when they had that 2-4 season at COVID, he was the one that pulled them out of that. He was the one that got them to that Big Ten championship. They won it because of him. He's the team leader. And greatest thing ever, I had this knee test I had to do, and it was like a resistance test. It gets harder as you go along, and you got to try your hardest for like 30 seconds. This guy comes up right next to me and is like screaming in my ear. He's like, go, keep going. He is just incredible. I just want to share that.
Are you sure you're not?
Sorry, what was that?
Are you sure you're not actually Kade McNamara's brother or something?
I'm pretty sure.
You're not just trying to put a good word in for Kade? Oh, look at this. What are we pulling?
Oh, he's got a jersey.
Oh, and it's a signed jersey.
Yep, he got it for me. So,
that's something. So he came here with. Gabriel came here with the evidence. That's great.
That's right. No, I had to show up. Hey, that's all I had for you guys. I just want to share. Katie's a real leader. I was ecstatic when he decided to transfer here.
Okay.
Really disappointed with his first time, but once he's healthy, he is dangerous. That if a good game to watch if you want to see how well he performs is 2021 versus Michigan State. They lost that game. Kade got injured on the final drive, I believe, but he was incredible that game. Watch that game if you want to see how well he performs.
So you are under the impression and the belief that what we saw in the second half of the game on Saturday can be the norm for Kade McNamara.
Oh, 100%. Yes. You watch. I watched every game for Michigan 2021. That's what he looked like. That was just normal for him. That's not abnormal plays for him. That's just what he looks like when he's healthy.
Let me ask you this, because you before we let you go, there's a lot of Michigan fans that don't like. Well, they don't like me. But there's also a lot of Michigan fans that don't like Kade. Explain that to me. Do you know why that is? Because there are claims that he was not the best on the way out of Michigan.
It's ridiculous. They don't like him because he made like 2 or 3 negative comments after he got forced out of the starting job by a younger quarterback. What do they expect him to do? It's like the craziest thing. He won them a Big Ten title, and then the next year, the year after that, he gets forced out after he gets injured. Like, of course he's going to be a little negative towards the coaching staff that chooses a young quarterback over him. It's completely ridiculous. And I was in some comment threads the other day defending him because Michigan fans are all about how he's just toxic, and when he literally led them to a Big Ten championship. It's ridiculous that there's no.
I would ask those Michigan fans if they've ever seen a mirror.
Well, I'll say this, Gabriel, I'm glad you don't have your last name on here, because I plan on cutting this segment out and posting it as its own video on the YouTube channel, because I believe that, first of all, this show and Kade live rent-free in Michigan fans' heads. So I'm going to post a video that is signed your name, but it's going to be 2 Michigan fans, because I think what you just said is actually really insightful in all honesty, because we don't know. I mean, I know Coach Patterson has had conversations with Kade at practice, and he's always cordial with Coach. But the fact that you've had some exposure to Kade, that's good to hear from a non-teammate, because of course you're going to expect your teammates to come to bat for you.
And even outside of the rehab facility, I saw him at PBB the other day, or not the other day, but while I was rehabbing with him, dapped him up, said hi. He knows my name. I saw him outside the IMU, said hi. He's a great guy, and people calling him toxic, Michigan fans calling him toxic, they don't know what they're talking about.
Well, Gabriel, appreciate you calling in, sir, and don't be a stranger to the show. We look forward to hearing from you again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir. That's good stuff. I didn't expect that call. And Coach Patterson will like to hear that, because, again, Coach Patterson, he's been around enough people that you don't anoint a guy, and he's had question marks. Not about Kade's character necessarily, but you just don't know, right? And there have been Michigan people that have said a lot of negative things about Kade McNamara, but on the flip side, there have been plenty of Michigan people who were fans that were very complimentary of Kade's contributions, and as they should be. Kade did help them. Hey, Jim Harbaugh may not have a job. He probably wouldn't be at the Chargers right now. Like, if he had gotten fired by Michigan, maybe he would have ended up as a head coach in the league. But Kade helped them to a Big Ten title, and he looked pretty good in doing so, as Gabriel brought up. So I appreciate his perspective. I still think that Iowa, and I saw somebody comment this. Somebody commented, why didn't anybody ask Kirk Ferentz on Tuesday about not playing Brendan Sullivan? Well, first of all, I wasn't there. I wasn't there in person. I'm going to be a part of almost all the Zoom press conferences this season. But unfortunately, Kirk is usually not available by Zoom. And so I don't know. It's a good question why Brendan Sullivan wasn't put in until they were up 40-0. But, maybe that's grasping at straws, or I should say trying to look at a glass half empty. And but I do think it's a fair question. We got a super chat here from Midwest. No, we got that one already. Different one. Midwest Storm Chasing. Thank you for all your contributions. If Iowa lacks to Iowa State in quarterback, running back, wide receiver, safeties, corner, D-line, how do we win? According to the Iowa State guy yesterday, which the excuses he came up for with Iowa State was a typical Iowa State fan. Well, first of all, Levi Stevenson, and he'll admit this, I hope, is the biggest homer. I had somebody reach out to me who will remain nameless. I had somebody reach out to me today, and it was a private message of somebody that I know well, and said, and this is not a derogatory thing, but more so along the lines of his homerism. Somebody reached out to me and said, did you find that Iowa State guy under a bridge in Ames? Because and I understand, again, not any disrespect to Levi, but I mean, the dude bleeds cardinal and gold. Like, he cannot see things objectively. He can't. He cannot do it. He can't do it. So, like, yeah, he's done this before. This is our 4th year of doing a show with Levi Stevenson over on the Iowa Football at the Voice of College Football channel. So go back and watch previous shows. There was one year, I think it was 2021, because remember, Iowa State was supposed to be really good in 21, Kyle. We went through like every position, and like every single position, he gave the nod to Iowa State. And then Iowa went out there and blitzkrieged him. So it doesn't really matter. I do think I gave, and maybe I'll give this if you have any time, Kyle. I know you're busy. You're good at making graphics. I might give you our picks from yesterday, because we went through and picked our positions. I don't think we need to put Levi's together. But I did give Iowa State the nod at quarterback, assuming we're just looking at the one line. I'd give Rocco the slight nod over Kade McNamara. I give them the slight nod at running back if it's just a 1-versus-1. But at the same time, that room's going to play. I give them the nod at wide receiver. I would not give them the nod at corner or on D-line. Safeties, I'd say, is a wash. And then I'd give Iowa tight end. I'd give Iowa offensive line.
Linebacker.
I'd give them linebacker. And linebacker is just, massive.
Linebacker is the biggest gap on the field.
And I give Iowa special teams. I mean, Levi was going on a tangent about how, we got 2 punters and then one guy's a pooch punter. It was even mentioned during the Fox broadcast, if you have 2 punters, you have none. And I don't like that argument for quarterbacks so much, but I do think if you're a specialist, you ought to be able to, if you're a good specialist, you ought to be able to learn how to pooch punt at times and how to, whatever they call the other type of punting, right?
You don't need 2.
You shouldn't need 2 guys.
That's like saying you need 1 for long field goals and 1 for short. No, you don't.
Well, and that has happened, but usually that means you have guys that aren't as complete, right? And I guess it can work, but when they start having more roster, when you have the new roster limits, right? With what is that going to 105 or whatever that is, that will affect how teams approach. Obviously, the walk-on thing, all that, but I wonder how that will affect that type of a mindset with having a pooch punter and having a regular punter and whatnot. But I think Iowa has the nod of special teams. I was really impressed with Kade McNamara. Here's a guy who you don't get the illegal block in the back. He's got a touchdown on the board in the first half.
Which, by the way, he didn't need the illegal block in the back.
Probably not. Usually, usually you don't. Usually those blocks don't affect the play. Yeah. That's why they're so unfortunate. But it did happen, and it was an illegal block in the back. And I just thought Kade McNamara was really impressive. So, and here we go with thank you, Midwest Storm Chasing, for all the support. But here we go, Dom. Abu isn't as good as Caleb. Caleb Johnson is better than Abu. Corey, come on. I'm not going to argue with anybody. Dom, you're a regular here. I appreciate you. I don't even believe Caleb is as good as Kamari. Like, as of right now, I think Kamari Moulton is a more complete back. I think LaShawn Williams, when healthy, is a more complete back. Now, this is a room at Iowa full of several guys who specialize in different things. Caleb Johnson's a long strider. He's got great speed once he gets in the open field, but he's not a guy who consistently drives through contact in spite of his size. And it's sometimes harder for a taller guy to get low He's not going to make guys miss. He's not jittery. He's not that type of a back. So I'm fine with that debate. But some people have taken that personally this week that I have made the statement that I still think Kamari Moulton is their best option right now. I hope Caleb Johnson is the next great thing, but we've said that before, and he's laid eggs. So, anyways, I got nothing against Caleb Johnson. I'm just seeing it as objectively as I can.
Breaking. Corey Braddock confirmed Caleb Johnson.
Caleb Johnson hater. I just Caleb Johnson.
Oh boy. I mean, I will say it's whether Abu Sama is the best back in the game or not. I mean, I can't speak to Iowa State's backup running backs. I frankly, I don't know anything about them, but Iowa has a running back room that at least gives you different looks. I mean, the one back is very different from the other. Even I would love to see Jazz Patterson get touches. He's different than all the three others. There's different things that Tim Lester could use the four of them to do.
Terrell Washington's a guy we didn't see. He was on the field a lot Saturday. We really didn't see much out of him.
Yeah.
The more I talk about this game, the more I think Iowa wins. Let's go to our next caller. We've got James, who's been waiting forever. James, appreciate you being here. Not the same James that's on the screen in the comment section. James, thank you for being here.
Yeah, how you doing tonight?
Great. We're great.
First off, I'm going to say something. To me, I do kind of agree with you. I do think Abu is the best running back in this game. No, I don't think he's the best. I think our room's better, obviously, like you said yesterday, but I do think he's the best individual 1v1, whether you go Kamari or Caleb. But
so who do you believe? Do you believe that it's like somebody said to me like yesterday in a comment, they said, literally, this is the kind, I don't know how anybody could have watched that game on Saturday and come away saying that Caleb Johnson's not the best running back. Are you kidding me? Are we really going to jump?
I also feel like what you said earlier about Caleb Johnson is very true. Caleb Johnson is very hit or miss game-wise. He'll have one good game, and the next game he won't look the same. You know what I mean? Or like he doesn't look the same. Like he'll have one really good game, and then he'll look bad the next game, or won't be that same person, or he won't have that many yards the next game. It's kind of like he's not consistent, if that makes sense, right? It's very hit or miss for him. It's very up and down.
Even in games he plays well. Corey made a good point. Kamari Moulton did not take any negative plays. Caleb Johnson takes tackles for loss all the time.
Yeah, especially too, like he'll also have one or two big plays, and you'll be like, oh, he looked good because he had one or two big runs. But it's like just because he had one or two big runs, his numbers will be inflated a little bit, you know. And I'm not just saying that because I know Corey did say that yesterday on his show, but like that's not just what I'm saying. But sometimes your numbers do get inflated when you have, a 60-yard run here and a 40-yard run here. Your numbers do get inflated a little bit. So
yeah, I can't. I'm amazed. I really should just not engage with people in the comment section. But I'm amazed. You know why that caller, that commenter that said I'm amazed that anybody could see it that way. I'll tell you what I'm amazed at. I'm amazed that anybody would jump to conclusions based on one game against an FCS opponent. Oh, and by the way, one half. Caleb didn't play in the first half. So we can't they're not even equal samples. Because we saw Kamari playing. It was a different half of football, and the difference was not just Caleb Johnson being there in the second half. I think anybody with a brain would say that. Agree with that.
But no, I was just saying I feel like Abu is definitely 1v1. I feel like Abu Sama is the better running back, but I feel like our room overall is obviously better. But
yeah,
but
I
no,
agree.
I feel like
got a kid named Hanson that played a lot.
Yeah, but they're really only too deep. After that, they very. We don't have like what we do where we have four guys we feel like we can give the ball to. You know what I mean? Like they're not like that where we feel like we can give the ball to four guys and one of those guys could be on. That's the thing I was talking to my friends the other day. I think that's the thing about this Iowa room that is special. It's like you have four running backs. One of them is bound to click, right? Like you can ride the hot hand because you have four options. If you find the high hand, you have a chance to ride the high hand the rest of the game. And that's kind of why I feel like we have a better running back room just because we can have more hot hands. We have people that have had good games here and there. So, one of them is bound to go.
Can I just real quick address Erica in the chat? She says, I wish Corey would find a different Iowa State analyst. I am not involved with Mark Rogers' recruiting efforts. Like, I don't have contact with Levi. Last I knew, Levi blocked me on Twitter, or I don't think I blocked him. Maybe we're not blocked. I don't have anything against Levi, but I did not recruit Levi. I'm not the one who invites him on year after year after year. And real quick, let me defend Caleb Johnson for a second to Jared. He says the shame with Caleb Johnson is that if he changed his play style, he could be so much better. I don't know that I agree with that either, because some guys are just who they are. And just because he's big and athletic doesn't mean, like Russell Dickerson. Who am I? Eric Dickerson. Who's Russell Dickerson? He's a country singer. Eric. Anyways, not everybody's going to run like they look. Like Derrick Henry is.
That's what I was gonna say. Just because he looks like Derrick Henry doesn't mean he's gonna bowl
Derrick
people up
Henry.
like Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry does run like he looks.
Yeah.
So I'll give him that. But I just think we have to have balance with these things, and I hope Caleb Johnson goes out there and runs for 800 yards on Saturday. I hope he runs for 800 yards and is inspired to run for diabetes the next day. I don't care. I hope that all happens. But I'm just simply saying I don't believe right now there's any reason to anoint one guy or the other. And by the way, if Liddell Betts and Kirk Ferentz and Tim Lester had solid reason to think Caleb is our number one guy, he would be on the one line. He's not. He's on the or one line. He's sharing the top spot on the depth chart with Kamari Moulton. So, anyways.
The one thing, too, I think is interesting to look at is last year, what happened. We were down running backs in this game, right? And I feel like this room is healthier this year than they were last year, right? And Jazz played well, so I'm not holding it against Jazz, right? Jazz did play well last year, right? So, but I'm saying, like, I feel like we're a lot healthier this year in that room than we were last year. And I feel like it gives me a little bit more confidence in that aspect of things.
James, can you give us all a Desmond Hudson update?
No, I don't. You mean talk about last week? What he did last week?
I shouldn't laugh. You know what? I had somebody email me, Kyle, a few days ago and say that. Well, I won't even say who was on the show with me that day, but me and somebody else that was on the show and someone else that was on the show, we were very rude because we laughed regarding Deacon Hill's 20-yard touchdown run. I had somebody take the time to email me about this because they thought it was so disrespectful that we he's like 260 and he's for a touchdown. I'm gonna.
Guess what? When Vince Wilfork got an accidental pick six, or like BJ Raji had an accidental pick six, we laughed. It was funny.
It's great. But he's also
you can go on YouTube and look up compilations of big man touchdowns because they're funny.
And a quarterback is not supposed to be that big. Okay. And he's not big Ben if Roethlisberger did it, that'd be one thing. But so anyways, we weren't making
bigger than Ben Roethlisberger.
So what did Desmond Hudson do? If anybody forgot, Desmond Hudson was an Iowa receiver who transferred to UNI.
Well, okay. So what happened was actually the first play he had like a 5-yard gain. And the next play they ran like a screen play, and he just got blown. He got like blown up right away. That's why his stat line looks like that. If that makes sense, right? Like,
is he their number one guy at receiver?
He's their number two guy.
Okay, but he's not doing much, is he?
No, but they didn't need him to do much this last game. They pretty much their running back went crazy, so they didn't really need to do much. So. But and they also played Valparaiso, who is not that good at FCS level, so it kind of was easy for them to they don't really have to do much, if that makes sense. But no, I feel like this game for me scares me more than I think you're scared about it, just because it's Iowa State, and I feel like they're the ones that usually make mistakes. But like, what happens if they don't make mistakes? It's always what's in the back of my head, right? Like they've always seemed to make the mistakes in those games, right? But like if they didn't, these results would be a lot different. You know what I mean? Like, I'm always like, what if they don't make those mistakes, right? Like, what if this year's this year where they don't make mistakes? It's kind of the way I look at it, right? Like,
well, I think Iowa's better at a lot of spots. I'm more confident in the X's and O's of this than I have been in previous years. And Iowa's won in previous years when they've been fairly even. So I think Iowa State's going to not only going to have to limit mistakes, but they're going to have to figure out a way to win a couple of matchups that we don't expect them to have a chance at winning. But
I'm also saying the last couple of years, it's kind of been like where they've made the mistakes. Where like the ones you said, like the punt where they ran into each other. I think they would have, if they got the ball back, I think they would have won that game. Because they were driving on us. No, but I'm saying they were driving on us, right? So I'm saying like if those things don't happen, like if they play a perfect game, you never know what could happen is what I'm saying, right? Because like a lot of times this season, they seem to be the team that makes a mistake. If that makes sense.
For anybody wondering, Desmond Hudson, and I'm not going to laugh because, by the way, nice kid. 2 receptions for you and I last week against Valpo for -1 yards. Am I saying that right, Kyle? -1 yards or -1 yard? How do you say that appropriately? What's the proper way to say that? -1 yard. Anyway, 2023, if anybody wondered, Desmond Hudson for you and I. You know what his best performance was, James?
I remember the game. I don't remember who it was against, but I remember watching the game.
It was against North Dakota, the team that Iowa State played on Saturday. He had 4 receptions for 61 yards, and he had a touchdown against Iowa State last year.
Yeah, I remember that because I remember. But can I say something about him real quick? I know this is not a you and I show, right? But I have met the person and I have talked to him about like why he left Iowa, and he had nothing but good things to say about the school, nothing but good things to say about the program, right? So like, I don't ever want nobody to bash on, some people for leaving, right? Because some people do have good intentions, right? And he's definitely one of the person that did have good intentions, right? When I talked to him about it, all he had was good things to say about Iowa, right? It was never nothing negative to say about Iowa. He was always like, he thanks them for the opportunity. Like, he always will love Iowa no matter where he's at, right? So I don't ever want nobody hating on a lot of people because you don't know why people transfer, right? And I feel like some people always be like, oh, people transfer. I don't like them because they transfer, right? Some people transfer for the right reasons, right? Some people transfer to get more playing time, or they don't see playing time, or they're transfer for other reasons, right? You never know, but that doesn't mean that they still don't respect us. You know what I mean? They don't respect us as fans. They don't respect the school, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. And I got nothing. Everything I've known about Desmond Hudson and heard, he's been very complimentary of Iowa, and he wasn't some great recruit. It's not like Oliver Martin.
Yeah.
He was a part of the. Well, he was a Brian. Wasn't he a Brian recruit? I'm trying to think of when he got to.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. But no. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how this game goes, and I hope we can watch us win, and I hope we can watch Colorado beat Nebraska. It's the only game I root for Colorado for because I hate Nebraska with a passion, right? So hopefully we can watch Nebraska lose. So that'd be a good day. Watching Iowa win, watching Nebraska lose would always be a good day. So
go Panthers on Saturday. Absolutely. How nice is it going to be, James, to see an Iowa State game on CBS?
Yeah, it's gonna be cool too because like you always think about that as a primetime slot, right? In Big Ten, like when they were the SEC, that was always the primetime slot, right? Like they always had that 2:30 big matchup, whether it's Alabama versus like Auburn or something like that, right? Like that's always the 2:30 matchup. So now it's like us, we're their primetime matchup, we're the matchup they're trying to they're looking forward to. So
yep, I agree. It's gonna be a fun day
for sure. But all right, enjoy your night and go Hawks always. And I appreciate you guys for everything. And I couldn't be on last Saturday obviously because I had the game. So I heard what Kyle had to say, but I couldn't say anything back. But I heard Kyle and I know he did a good job on that. So
thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, James. Appreciate it. Erica.
Can I just say to you, by the way? Oh, go for it.
Erica, thank you for the super chat. Levi claimed that Iowa State has a Mike Leach offense. I don't know that he said that exactly, but he did say something to that effect. So thank you for the super chat. And Midwest Storm Chasing was up next. So Midwest Storm Chasing, you left. I know you're probably on a schedule, but he did add another super chat. So I thank you for that. I was mowing the yard listening, and Levi made me want to run myself over. Wow.
Can I just say, by the way, it would be incredible, and I know you'll never do this. It would be incredibly funny to have Levi scheduled for the post game on Saturday, regardless of the result. And
I don't think, first of all, I don't know if you watched it. At the end of that show Tuesday, I just gave up trying to talk. I was done. I just stopped trying to talk because we could have been there all day, and he just wanted to hear himself talk. So
he wanted to get into a 60-minute pillow fight. That's what he wanted to get into.
Wanting to argue about what's better, total offense versus yards per play, yards, whatever. Anyways. So, Midwest Storm Chasing, come on back if you are in the area. James, is Brent Musburger on the call? He does not work for CBS. I don't even think, is Brent Musburger still working anywhere? Last I knew, he was working for he was like the voice of some team or program.
Yeah.
So I no, it's going to be Brad Nessler and I said Dar. Why did I say who is Dar Danielson? Who is Dar Danielson? I called him Dar Danielson. Is there a Dar Danielson? Who is Dar Danielson? Let's see. Dar Danielson. Listen, this is not my night, man. I've been calling Gary Danielson Dar Danielson. You want to know why? Why is that name in my head? Dar Danielson is a reporter for Radio Iowa, and I haven't had contact with Dar Danielson since I worked radio 10 years ago. Well, 8 years ago, whatever it was. Wow, James, James knows everything. He's a guy on Radio Iowa. Yes. Why am I saying Dar Danielson? Holy cannoli. Wow. Okay. Midwest Storm Chasing says, can I join for the Levi Part 2 interview? If only there was going to be a Part 2 interview. That would be
you can let me handle that show, and you can sit with your popcorn.
I love that. All right. Unless Midwest Storm Chasing comes back in, Corey might be our final caller. No, we've got one on the phone line. I'm sorry. We've got one on the phone line. And Corey, you're up first. Good to see your face again.
Great to see you, gentlemen. Great show as always. Couple things. I want to first speak out against the hate that I'm witnessing on this show, the fat shaming of Deacon Hill.
You go right ahead and speak out against it, buddy boy. You go right ahead.
The Wisconsin hate effect, and then the and first and foremost, I should have spoke out because your hatred for these 3x5 notebooks.
Yeah, I've got plenty of them. I take notes on these things all the time, but I'm also not trying to run a Big Ten offense.
You don't know, that might have been his choice of a cigar menu for his victory cigar. You don't know what was on that.
I want my bagels with blueberries. I want regular cream cheese. I want them toasted lightly. Yeah. He's probably just got those for his intern for after the game, for his halftime snack.
You know, BF had that all right here. He didn't need.
Oh, yep. We got to see what he had right here. I'm sorry. Listen, you're just teeing me up now. So,
let me remind everyone, I'm an Iowa State graduate, and I'm a diehard Hawkeye fan. So I feel a little bit guilty and slightly conflicted, but I'll be going for the Hawkeyes all the way. Shame on me. I appreciate and I love that university that gave me my education. And I had a good run as a golf course superintendent thanks to their horticulture program. But moving on, when I think of Iowa State, I think of Iowa State pursuing the ball very aggressively on the defensive side. And there's always an X factor where when they're over pursuing, whether it's the screen pass to Akram Wadley, or whether it's burning them with the Amir Smith Marset, or possibly, I want to ask you guys, who do you think? I want two questions, and I'm going to tell you my answer, and then you give me yours. Who do you think is going to have the most running yards for Iowa, and who do you think is going to have the most receiving yards for Iowa? And then I'm going to throw a third one in there. Who is going to have some level of impact that you would have expected nothing from initially? So my thought is this.
Wait, do I get to answer the questions?
I'm going to answer, and then I want your answers.
All right, go ahead.
Then I can shut up, and I won't. Okay, so I think Lachey's going over 100 yards against these linebackers. I think, and this is I get a wild card on this, but the two power runners, Kamari Moulton and LaShawn Williams that I call our power runners.
Jazz Patterson's not a power runner.
Well, yeah. But I mean,
he might be the most. That dude is just looking for concussions. I mean, the way I'm serious.
So
going headhunting.
But I believe that I don't know if we're gonna get the breakaway long runs with Caleb Johnson. I think what's gonna happen is Lachey 100 yards, and either Kamari Moulton or LaShawn Williams is going for 100. And then I'm going to say, and my wild card is Caleb Brown's going to get 60 yards, and one of them is going to be like a somewhat key play. All right. So now you guys give me your spiel on what you would expect from Iowa on the offensive side as far as significant top rusher, top receiver.
I will surprise some people. I think it will. Here's my guess. I think Caleb Johnson will be the leading rusher.
But Corey, you've been hating on him all show.
He's just kissing up he called out.
You know what's funny? What's funny about this is I can stay objective while also taking heat from ridiculous sources about a couple of comments that I've made. I can also listen. Multiple things can be true at the same time. Like I can say I think Kamari Moulton is the best back, while also saying I think Caleb is the hot hand right now. And look, here's the other thing about this: Kamari's really young, and this is only his second game being the quote unquote lead horse. So I do think in a game like this, a rivalry, still pretty early in the season. Even though Caleb's been inconsistent during his career, I think maybe he's the more reliable pick. So that's why I'd be picking him for this game. Hopefully both guys. I'd like to see, a couple of guys with 50 plus, and then maybe you add a guy like LaShawn with, 40 and Jazz ends it gives you 30. Those are pretty good numbers when you add all those up. So that's what I'd say there. As it relates to receiving yards, I think here's the deal with Reese Vanderzee. Cade was looking for him a lot Saturday. And you just go back and watch those, not just the highlights, but even you can see Cade looking his direction. So I'm going to go with Reese Vanderzee because, hey, it's between him and Gill. I got to see it from Caleb Brown before I'm giving him that nod. I got to see it out of Caden Weegan. Seth Anderson's not going to play. It doesn't sound like, maybe Terrell Washington can get involved, but I think it's between Gill and Vanderzee. Both those guys proved reliable with their hands on Saturday, but I'll go with Vanderzee. And yeah, we'll see. It'd be nice to get somebody, we talk about Iowa State beating you over the top. Let's see somebody beat Iowa State's DBs over the top. That's going to be hard to do. Caden Weegan's got a lot of speed. Maybe he's a guy. Maybe Jacob Gill's a guy, or maybe, like you said, Caleb Brown can come back and do it.
So you got Vanderzee or Gill getting more receiving yards than Luke Lachey.
Are we including tight end? Well,
yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it depends on do we expect somebody with the Iowa receiving core to beat their guy over the top? And that doesn't happen very often.
Linebackers is what I'm thinking. Lachey,
yeah,
ISU linebackers.
Yeah, maybe. And you know what? This was brought up today as we chatted with Abdul Hodge over Zoom. And I can't remember who it was in the media, but somebody brought up Zach Ortworth's per catch average. It's like 40 yards or something insane.
His catch 40.
He's a guy nobody's talking about, but they must really like him. I was gonna name him as potentially a player that isn't expected to do anything. And Addison Estringa too. Nobody talks about Addison Estringa. Addison Estringa is a really good football player.
Yeah. Well, they're loaded at tight end, so maybe they'll just throw all these tight ends at those linebackers and, maybe attacking. Like I said earlier in the week, and I'll bring it up tomorrow on our preview. If Iowa can run the ball effectively early and make those DBs cheat up, then maybe you can strike on a couple of play action balls. And maybe we see a waist down used. There weren't really too many waist down opportunities Saturday. And I don't think it's as big of a deal to to take advantage of waste down opportunities when you're up 30-0 on Illinois State. So, a number of interesting storylines. Kyle, you got anybody else in the mix in mind?
Zach Ortworth was my guy. Nobody expects anything from that would do. I think Jacob Gill will lead in receiving yards outside of tight ends. I think he'll be the leading receiver. I don't see Iowa beating Iowa State over the top. And I think from a couple of those catches in the first half, Jacob Gill stands out to me as somebody that could make that good physical rivalry game catch that I think, a Nico Ragaini would have made, or some of those players that, were not piling up stats, but would make some of those important catches. So I'd go with him. And I think Kamar Moulton leads in rushing yards.
Okay, and if I can selfishly jump in, which team ends up with more turnovers, or the key turnover that determines the game? Which team makes that turnover?
Well, yeah, I have no reason to believe that'll be Iowa. So I'd have to go Iowa State. There's nothing about the game. Like, it may happen, but there's no indicators of that. We saw receivers holding onto the ball through contact. We saw guys like Moulton, and more so Moulton, I think, than Caleb Johnson. I think Moulton dealt with more contact, if you will, and having to play through contact. And then Kade, against Illinois State, was really sound with decision-making. Had a couple of underthrows, which could get you burned against a better defensive backfield. So hopefully those things get corrected on tape. But that was, I think, major. Just footwork, just decision-making with your footwork. But, yeah, I would have to go Iowa State. I don't have a lot of confidence. Special teams usually come back into play in this game.
My nervousness for Iowa is we do have a pretty green punter. That's the only, variable that I'm concerned about. But I suspect if Iowa can get up, and then you can get the typical Iowa State quarterback pressing, our DBs are going to get a game determining pick. And
I think we'll create a couple turnovers. I do think I'll go on the record and say Kade turns it over once.
Maybe 2-1, kind of
2-1. Yeah, I'd go 2-1.
That's about what I'm thinking.
Well, Corey, I appreciate you being here. I'm assuming we'll see you for Cyhawk post game with Coach Patterson.
I'll be driving. I'm going to stay in. I'm driving halfway back. My son's got a game the next day at noon, but I'll be staying in, how do you say it? Ottawa, Illinois, at one of the hotels there.
Okay. Never heard of that before, but okay.
Whatever it is. That's my halfway stop. But anyway, yeah, I'll probably tune in. And in case Don Patterson's watching, I wanted to throw a little name drop out for our 78, 79, 80 Hawkeyes. The name for today is Phil Seuss. He was a left-handed quarterback. Phil Seuss. So
Seuss,
Don,
okay. I know the name, but I'll bring that up to Don for sure.
I think you might have mentioned Pete Gales, and I mentioned some receivers, but this is a quarterback. Before Gordy Bohannon came in, it was Phil Seuss, and so that's a blast from the past, or a little name drop from the past. That's for you, Don, if you're listening.
Well, Corey, drive safe Saturday, and whenever we talk to you next, let's hope we're talking about a Hawkeye win.
Yes, and one more thing. Roy Higgins, at Higginized, Jay Higgins' father. His dream is to have a new chant start up in Kinnick with his hawk. So here's my Anita, Iowa Wave suggestion.
Uh-oh.
The chomp, the Hawkeye, the third down stop, the chomp.
Yep.
Except it's like skull.
Okay.
Except it's ha.
Maybe we.
I'll be in the south end zone.
Okay.
And that's where it's going to start. Mark my words. I will make my rounds, and it's going to happen. It's going to start in the south end zone. Just watch. It will happen. And Roy, this is for you. Just be ready.
Appreciate it, sir. We'll talk to you next time.
All right, go Hawks.
Thanks, Corey. Yeah, that would be. Kyle's looking up at his better half here. What's going on? Okay. People didn't know he had a better half. They know now. Are you following the show on Facebook? Are you following the show on Facebook, Kyle?
I believe so.
Okay.
Not that I think I use my Facebook about once a calendar year.
It doesn't matter. If you're not following us on Facebook, be sure to do that. Here is the Facebook page.
All right. I'll check right now. How about that?
Here is it's ridiculous that you're having to check. Here is the Facebook page. All right. Follow it on Facebook. We post segments. We post scheduling announcements, post-game previews, all that stuff right here on the channel. You can like and follow, even turn notifications on. Be sure you do that. Facebook, and then also on Instagram. But we're trying to get this Facebook page up over 1,000 followers. We're at 930, folks. We're at 930. And the link is in the description below, but you can just search from the Hawkeye of the Storm on Facebook, and it should show up. But again, the link is in the description if anybody has problems finding it. All right, Midwest Storm Chasing is here. All right, we got you, sir. Thank you for being here. Yeah, we're doing good. We appreciate your support, and thank you for being patient on the phone line.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, what was Caleb Johnson suspended for? Like, why couldn't he play the first half?
What I was told is, well, first of all, it's no secret that it was a violation of team rules. And my understanding is that it may or may not have had something to do with an obligation he fulfilled with one of his NIL partners. And perhaps it was not the best of communication between him and Iowa. I'll just leave it at that. That's what I was told.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was looking all over for it, and I'm like, I couldn't figure it out. So figured maybe you know.
They're going to keep that internal, but based on what I was told, that's what it is. Here's the thing about Caleb Johnson, and I'll say the same thing about Jazz Patterson. Although I don't know as much about Jazz, they're interesting personalities, and sometimes you get that. I mean, think about the number of receivers Iowa's had that have those unique personalities. Like sometimes it's kind of like kickers have a shtick, but I don't think like the weirdness of place kickers is necessarily going to be like going against the grain of Iowa. But I think sometimes the receivers and the skill guys that have those unique personalities maybe sometimes clash with the Iowa way. And I'm not saying that's the case with Caleb necessarily, but I think an extreme example is Drell Johnson-Koulianos. I think Charlie Jones would be another really good example. Just personality-wise, I think maybe the two parties didn't mesh as well as some would like. Amir Smith-Marset at times, Akram Wadley at times. Maybe Tracy. Yeah, but that's what I was told, that it was in regards to something that happened some time ago in the offseason.
Gotcha. And then Kade McNamara. So I sent in a super chat earlier about if you took Michigan's wide receivers and brought them to Iowa for his 2021 year, and then because then you have so many more opportunities probably downfield, because I don't think Cade's ever going to blow you away this season with pass yards. With no offense to our receiver core, but they're not top tier. But that's what I was trying to say to you guys, because if you brought in Michigan and then you compared that to Iowa State, because Iowa State has really good wide receivers, and I just feel like that would be more of a comparison, because I feel like the numbers would be closer. But I mean, you guys can have your opinion.
I could see that. I think it's clear. We talked about this when Cade committed. Anybody that expected even the and his production at Michigan was good. I wouldn't say it was great, but you had to have expectations lowered a little bit given the climate he was coming into. But, with the new OC, better play calling, better receiver development, better concepts, I don't know that the second half of what we saw Saturday is going to be the norm, but even with the downgrade, quote unquote, of Iowa's receivers. I think you're upgrading at tight end. I think you have a chance of being just as good up front this year at Iowa as they were in 21 at Michigan. So maybe that accounts for some of that.
So that first half of the Iowa State game, if there was a panic button, I hit it like 100% within the first quarter. I mean, I know they're throwing a rush at us, but Iowa couldn't run the ball more than 2-3 yards. And then you're going to bring in Iowa State this weekend, which is supposed to be probably even better is better up front than Illinois State. What if we can't run the ball again? Then we have no choice than to air it out.
Yeah.
And then what are we going to do? I mean, that's my biggest concern.
Yeah, then you have every right to that concern, but I'll remind you, not that it always works out this way, because there are exceptions to the rule, one being 2022, but more often than not, Iowa's had a bad offense and still beaten Iowa State.
Yes, yeah.
So, I mean,
and it usually doesn't take much.
Yeah, I mean, they typically speaking, again, exception being 2022, when Iowa bit itself in the back too many times. Let's not forget that 2022 game. Remember, Iowa had a blocked punt early in that game and still lost.
They scored a touchdown 2 minutes into the game and then didn't score the rest of the game. Was it
a touchdown or a field goal?
No, it was a touchdown. It was a blocked punt, and then it was a rushing touchdown.
And it was like, what final score was, like 10-7?
10-7. They went 57 and a half minutes without scoring.
Yeah. So there are exceptions when you're so bad. But that was an example. Like that defense did everything it could. And that was a good Iowa State offense with Xavier Hutchinson at receiver. But you gave up one touchdown on the unfortunate. I think Riley Moss kind of tripped and fell down, or he got beat some way or the other in the end zone, and it just took. So the margin of error is very small, clearly, if you don't run the ball well in this Iowa offense. But hopefully, they're not as dependent on that with the Tim Lester acumen.
Right? Yeah. Yesterday, Levi said that he always sees the next dumbest play. Like, wasn't that just a dig at himself? Like, remember that I saw a reel today on Instagram of they did a kick, or Iowa punted it, and the two guys just ran right into each other.
Yeah, that was
like
20,
that was
20,
yeah, I don't know what year it was.
2019. Yeah. You know what I like about that? My favorite YouTube video, and everybody can look it up, is that video with Dave Matthews Band Crash in the background. Have you guys seen this on YouTube? I can't play it on here because it would get demonetized, but go look up Iowa State punt Dave Matthews Band, and it should pop right up. But that is a gem. That one's a beauty. By the way, are you really a storm chaser?
Yeah, I am. I never really did. I never really posted anything about it because I just started my YouTube channel like this year. Okay. So, and there really wasn't stuff going on this spring down here. Anyways, I'm from Fairfield, so
okay,
we're a little bit more south. So there really wasn't anything great going on here this year. So
very cool. Well, I can say I appreciate your support, not just with the super chats, but calling in. And I know sometimes you got to wait a little while.
Yeah. Well, I kind of got scared there for a second. I'm like, oh boy, what am I going to talk? Well, I didn't know what to talk about. And I'm like, well, you know what? I can think of some things.
You can just say, if you heard a couple of callers earlier, with all due respect to our callers, you can literally call in and then just sit there and breathe into the microphone, and you're going to fit in with some people.
Right. Okay.
I'm just saying, you are.
So Sebastian Castro stripped that ball Saturday. I feel like there wasn't a whole bunch of talk about that. Like that was a high quality play. Like that was heads up.
Yeah.
Like I don't see any because usually when something cool happens in the game, you see it all over Facebook, all over TikTok. Like that was one play that was left out. Like the two touchdowns that Kade McNamara threw were highlights immediately. But I think what Sebastian Castro did that day was incredible.
And I know it seems simple enough. Let's give credit to TJ Hall for jumping on the ball right away and covering it up the way they're taught to cover it up. That seems simple enough, but believe me, they practice, scooping and jumping on loose balls in practice for a reason. So, and they weren't very good in takeaways a year ago. They've talked about that. That was clearly an off-season. That was a point of emphasis in the off-season, was doing better producing turnovers. And they did it in week one.
You think Levi went and talked to the linebacker crew at Iowa State and told them all the sweet nothings again, like he told you?
I'm sure Levi went there to hype them all up today, and John Haycock just welcomed him in, with open arms.
He was the motivational speaker at open practice.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. Yeah, I sat in there mowing the grass and I couldn't help but laugh a couple times. You didn't even say anything back. I was just hoping you're just going to unload on him eventually. But
I
just sat there. I'm like, oh.
This, by the way, I wish Corey would unload.
Well, here's the deal. A, Mark show. B, if you can just go round and round and just be, it's like talking to a philosopher. Like, they don't want to get anywhere. They just want to talk in circles. Like, they're not actually, everything's a question. Nothing's concrete or backed by evidence. It's all just
question with question.
Yeah, exactly. I sat there and listened to you guys go round and round about total yards and
I gave
yards per play. And
you can have it.
The first thing I go look at for any team, if I get on ESPN and check stats, I go to total yards 100% of the time.
Line of reasoning. I'm not saying it's worthwhile, but they're both worthwhile. And total offense has long been accepted as the most general metric for offense, whether you think it's modern or not. I know he tried to take a jab at Chuck Long because I brought up Chuck Long. He's a Heisman runner-up and was a great in Iowa history. He's been on the record and said total offense. He believes total offense is the best way to evaluate a quarterback and an offense.
I looked at the quarterback ratings and I saw where Kade was. I think it was 14 or 15 rated under the Iowa State quarterback. Was that accurate? Or was it 10? I think it was 10. I think Iowa State guy had 74.
What type of a rating are we talking about?
I don't know. I can't remember what they call it.
Some football focus thing or something?
Yeah, QBR.
Yeah, QBR. That's it.
Okay. Yeah, I don't really know. See, there's a difference between QBR and passer rating, and I don't you'd have to research that. I don't know exactly. I can tell you that one thing with confidence that Iowa has had a lot of bad passer ratings and QBRs in recent time.
Iowa's had a few single-digit QBRs.
When you look at Kade McNamara's total, even in spite of that first half, and you see his completion percentage on Saturday, your jaw hits the floor.
Yeah, was it 94% in the second half or 93?
Yeah, it was something like that. What was the total? What were his total numbers to end the game?
He was 21 of 31 for 250-ish, and then the 3 touchdowns.
Okay.
Which can we all agree that bomb that the Iowa State quarterback threw in the very first play of the game was a 50-50 ball? Like, no more than Kade throwing the ball into the end zone. Like, that had the same.
It was a great catch by Jalen.
Yeah, because I watched the full Iowa game. And I'm like, well, I know we play them next weekend, so we might as well watch it. And I saw that. I'm like, oh my god, we're in trouble.
But then it was a real nice throw to the end zone.
That was I'll give him props on that one.
Rocco made some nice throws in that game. Like that's why I say I go away impressed with him. That's why I keep going back. That's the way they win that game Saturday is with his arm.
Yeah, and I agree with them keeping Kade in the game as long as they could, or as long as they were willing to. I mean, when they hit 33 points, I mean, I get it, probably pull him out, just save him for the next game. But he needed all the reps he could get. I mean, I know he's had 100 or more in fall practice, but he needs game time. I mean, there's a difference between going into practice and going into a game. I mean, everything's different, and he needed that. So I don't agree with people saying, "Oh, put I can't even remember his name," but
I just
put him in.
At a minimum, when you're up 33-0, I wanted to see him get at least a drive there.
That's what I wanted to see him get one drive, even if it was just the one drive.
Because remember, hey, let's not forget, there has been evidence aplenty in recent years of Iowa's backup not being ready for the moment. So let's not let that happen again.
And Kade's not someone that's, I mean, even though he claims he's healthy, I mean, he guy could go down again any minute. He's kind of a liability, but
correct. Yep.
And if he goes down, then you throw on the second guy, then he ain't gonna know what he's doing. And which if they played that close in fall practice, I see why Kirk Ferentz gave him the nod. I mean, I think Kade deserves it, even if he wasn't. Maybe he was just playing a % under the second guy. I mean, I just feel like still you give Kade a chance. I mean, because I think if he has a good year this year, he could be by a 4th or 5th round pick in the draft.
Yeah, it depends on what you mean by has a good year. I don't think he's on any draft boards right now, but I guess nobody really expects him to have some great years. So sure, I guess that's
minus the knee injuries. Maybe I don't see NFL GM just looking at him with with two blown up knee, or well, the knee blown up twice.
Yeah, was it the same knee the second time as the first one he had surgery on?
Yeah, it was.
Was it?
And did he go back out to California to get that surgery done, or did he do it here in Iowa? Because I thought I read something the other day where he went clear back to California to do rehab again.
Well, we just had that guy call in from Iowa.
Well, I know, but I feel like he had the surgery
That's
in
the
California.
rehab, the surgery. I feel like I heard that too somewhere. Some specialist in California or something far away.
Yeah, I just always thought University of Iowa was probably one of the best around, really, for sports med.
Yeah,
I guess that's my opinion.
Right. Maybe he did go out there.
But anyways, fellas, thanks for having me on here.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank you,
ya.
sir. Appreciate the support, absolutely, and good stuff. Good questions, good comments. We'll just have to see. Yeah, I'm not some huge Rocco Beck fan, but I just have to see Kade in this moment. We just haven't seen it. Like, we have not seen him perform well against an FBS team. We haven't. He didn't even look good against Western Michigan last year.
No.
So let's see him perform well against an FBS team coming off injury, or just in an Iowa jersey. How about that? Iowa State Saturday. I think our last caller hung up. If you called the phone line, we're on hold forever. We apologize. You were next in line, but again, I understand not being able to wait. Couple comments here to finish off. Matt Williams, can Caleb Brown be the Deebo Samuel of the Shanahan-style offense? Wouldn't that be nice? Jack, have you seen the basketball non-conference schedule? Yes. And I'm going to go ahead and share that for everybody since you asked about it. I'm sure Jack saw it, but let's go ahead and throw this up on the screen. So Iowa men's basketball did release its non-conference schedule for the 2024-2025 slate. And
one clarification, Corey, I just searched it up just to make sure I was correct. The two knee injuries were the different knees. It was the right knee that he blew up first, but it was the right quad. I was thinking that he heard originally was the same on the same leg as the knee. It was actually the left knee that he blew up the second time.
Got it. Okay. Good information to know. In response to Jack's question, let's go ahead and share the men's basketball schedule that was released earlier today. Officially released. We knew all these matchups were taking place. Let me see if I can get this a little bit bigger for people. Maybe not. It's not going to let me. Okay, this will work. So we can at least get a good look at the schedule. 3 really good neutral site games. They get Utah State, they get Utah, they get Wazoo, and those games are all in the vicinity of the state. So Kansas City, Sioux Falls, and Moline. None in the state, but all very close. And then they have a bunch of snoozers at home, which has kind of been the norm. I mean, it's been the norm. It has. South Dakota, Southern.
Fran dialed up. Pretty special.
How many of these logos can you even define? So Southern
I can, but the first two I have no idea. South
Dakota. Then USC upstate is the one to the left of Iowa State. New Hampshire is the one on the bottom far right. Is the one on the top right Ryder? Go look that up, Kyle. Let's see if it's the.
I don't recognize it. Yeah, it's Ryder.
Hey, I'm 5 for 5 or whatever.
It's pretty good.
And then is the top left? Don't tell me I don't want to. I'm not going to guess the exhibition because I don't care. It's going to be like a D2 team. The one just inside, so between Southern and the exhibition, it's not Columbia, is it?
No, it's Texas A&M something. Texas A&M
Corpus Christi.
Corpus Christi, yeah.
Is it really the Lion? The Lion up there?
Texas A&M. Let me see. It's
okay.
I can see it on the Iowa schedule. It says Texas A&M C, and then it doesn't say anything else.
Okay, and then bottom, the one, don't tell me, but the one between Iowa State and Utah on the 15th of December. I don't even know what that is. What is that? What is the logo?
Pirate of some sort, or
I have no idea. Is it Manhattan? It's not Manhattan.
It says New Orleans on the Iowa basketball schedule.
I forgot New Orleans was a D1 program. Okay.
That's an exhibition too, by the way.
No, it's not.
What does
What are you talking
EXH? What does EXH mean on the schedule then? I've got it out of order here, so I can't tell what order they're in. I'm on the website.
Well, there's not 2 exhibitions.
What is Okay, never mind. Maybe there's not. It says EXH below the.
What are you looking at? What are we looking at? The correct schedule here?
Well, I'm not looking at the one you have up. I have you on the side of the screen. I have the Iowa website. I guess it's not, but it has for some reason.
Okay, you're all confused. So first of all,
it's Texas A&M Commerce is the second logo. Texas A&M Commerce.
I would have been able to tell you if it was Corpus Christi. And then
Texas A&M Commerce.
Hey, I was right about Ryder, and I was right about USC Upstate. You are right about
Ryder. I would not have gotten Ryder. I didn't know that one.
So that is a typo on the Iowa website where it says EXH.
Yeah, that is a typo.
Because it says Iowa State's an exhibition.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I guess we're playing Iowa State for fun. We're scrimmaging.
Wow, that is a big typo. So people flock to social media to rip at Iowa athletics for the scheduling error, but that's the non-conference schedule, folks.
Interns getting fired.
Yeah, so that was officially released earlier today. And Brian, yes, thank you, folks, not just Brian, but everybody that's going to tune in, that does tune in each and every week. Angela, thank you for being here. I didn't see your name earlier, so if I apologize if I missed your name. And Lucas wants to know about alternate uniforms this year. Nothing yet, nothing official. That's never really excited me. So I don't know, other than they usually do one. They usually have one every year. It seems like last year they had 2. They had one on the road against Penn State, and I think they had another one different day. I'm guessing they'll have at least one. That seems to be a thing right now with Iowa. So
well, they don't. The only one that gets me excited is if they have a top 10 team or something coming to town and they wear the blackout jerseys for a night game. That's the only, because of obviously the history with that. But
folks, Iowa postgame with Coach John Patterson. If you're interested in sponsoring the show or any of the shows with Coach Patterson this fall, send an email to the email at the bottom of the screen, info@fromthehawkeyeofthestorm.com, info@fromthehawkeyeofthestorm.com. You can also DM me through Twitter. Iowa State this Saturday, 2:30 p.m. Central Time kick on CBS. Not Dar Danielson, Gary Danielson, and Brad Nestler on the call. And followed by Iowa postgame with yours truly and Coach Patterson. Also, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram and get updates on everything from the Hawkeye of the Storm, including our postgame shows. Follow me @From the Hawkeye on Twitter and Instagram, and From the Hawkeye of the Storm on Facebook. I need to change this so it says X, right? Because it's no longer Twitter. I'm stuck in yesteryear here. Let's make sure that this is correct. Can I get this also? It's on one line. Why does it have to look clunky like that? Here, let's see if this will people. Why does that still? I give up. All right, X and Instagram right there @From the Hawkeye, and then From the Hawkeye of the Storm on Facebook. And as always, hit the like button on your way out, folks. Share the show out on social media, because if you enjoy the content, others will as well. And Midwest Storm Chasing, Hawks by a million. Thanks, fellas. Thank you. Kyle, thank you for being here and spending the last couple hours. Thank your better half as well. And we'll talk to everybody Saturday after Iowa State, the big Cy-Hawk contest in Iowa City. Have a great night.